Guys, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for watching our stream. Molly, Nevola here, and Cam, intern Cam in the newsroom.
How you guys doing?
Another day, another Fox 5 Live, guys. We're happy to be here. Both of us dealing with a little bit of a cold. It's literally like the sick box in here, but...
Yeah, we've got lots and lots of germs floating around, so if you see anybody else walk in here, then pray for them. It's
our little digital room of sick germs. But, guys, we have some cool stuff going on in the district today. And really all over the nation, but a lot of stuff locally today that is going to be happening throughout the next few hour span that we are on with you guys on the live stream. So thanks for watching. We're going to head right over. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff today, but let's head right over to Tenleytown, which is just one stop below where we are right now in Northwest Washington. This is an area of D.C. where the university is, American University is there, lots of corporations as well. And today, one of those local businesses, a local chain, a burger chain, called Z Burger. Check it out. Live footage right here is giving away what they're calling free nothing burgers. So these burgers are just plain burgers on a toasted bun, and that's what it is. Cam, have you heard about these?
I have never had a nothing burger just because like I just get a lot of things on my burgers and that's how it is.
Yeah.
But anytime you can get anything free, I'm always down for that. I want can you put ketchup on it and stuff after the fact?
I think what's the situation point, I think they probably have, look at the line, it's already forming so well. So this is an event from 11 to 2 o'clock today. I think the point is to not put extraneous condiments and stuff on it, but because basically here's the background, guys. The Nothing Burger is a plain burger. A lot of people think that one of the founders, Peter Newsham of Z Burger here, this local DC chain, people think he invented the term, but really the term goes back to the 1950s, I've been reading. But he used to call it out when people ordered a plain burger, and so they knew what he was talking about. It was just the burger that you see there on a toasted bun. So I think the whole point is to get them plain. I'm guessing people are going to dress them up, but they won't be dressing them up. So there they are. Look at that close-up. Yum. I don't know if people are meat eaters out there or burger lovers. I'm actually an occasional burger lover. I'm not a big meat eater, to be honest, but
I love burgers, so
you need it.
I would be totally there. I would be totally there if I wasn't here talking to you guys.
Great shot. I know. I actually wanted to send Cam or someone else out there to maybe Skype back with us or see what they could check into it, but we got one of our live photogs here, so it's kind of cool. Get some good shots. Look at that. Z Burger in Tenleytown. So this is Northwest Washington, and today people can order actually a beef, a veggie, or a turkey burger. All of them coming in nothing style, so plain on the toasted bun. And that's cool. There's some options there for beef or white meat or veggie.
My dad uses the term "nothing burger" a lot, actually, just like as a, but not in reference to actual burgers,
right.
but as like a, if there's a say that he works in politics, so say that there's a a press conference where some politician talks for 30 minutes, he says nothing, which they'd love to do. He'll say
exactly.
That was nothing burger.
That's exactly what it is. I was actually, before we didn't even chat about this, I was reading. You can put this into politics as well. For example, Trump supporters that have described the meeting between Donald Trump Jr. and the Russians, claiming that they have dirt on Hillary Clinton or whatever as a nothing burger. It means nothing.
Yeah,
it holds no weight.
I actually don't really hear it in reference to actual burgers, just because I think that the amount of people that get nothing burgers is pretty, I think, small. I think rare. I don't know how many people actually do that. I mean, if you do, then let us know. But I always like to get, cheese, bacon, ketchup, lettuce, onions on there, mustard. I've got a stacked burger usually. So
mustard's my favorite for sure. That's spicy. But no, I think you're right. I think a lot of this is sort of a spoof too on the term. It's a term that's used in other ways. But because he would use it when someone would order a plain burger, now he's like, let's do this giveaway and call it this. So here you go. There's your close-up. Nothing burger here in DC. This goes on from 11 to 2. So if you guys are in the area, if you're watching from around here, check it out. Let us know and go get you some.
And then get me some too, and then come drop it off.
We were hoping we could get like a thing of them, like our photog could bring it back. But
it is one per person, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing. So it is one per person. So everybody has to go, unfortunately.
Look at, they're rocking and rolling. We were talking about, is this an early time for lunch? Not really, if you're up early.
Anyone who works starting at 7 probably, is eating breakfast at 6 or 5:45. So this is probably a good time for lunch for them.
True.
Or if or if you're about to go to work, anybody who starts at 12,
right,
might just go into the city and grab like a
quick bite,
breakfast lunch type scenario that of a free burger.
Yeah, and this is a fast casual American burger chain here in DC. It's known for burgers and fries and onion rings and shakes and all that stuff. Kind of like, I guess, all those Five Guys, Shake Shack.
Yep. And Z Burger, they were the ones that had the burger eating contest over the July 4th weekend.
That's
for anybody who was
right.
checking in with us then,
that was crazy.
We streamed that, had some reactions and stuff. That was they've been making some news recently, and they're already one of the more famous burger chains in the area for sure.
Yep.
Most people who live in the DC area know about Z Burger.
Oh yeah, they're getting the word out there. There they are. Those are the different stages of them getting cooked right there. We saw them raw. Now they're getting ready. I wonder how many they'll go through today. Like I said, they're making a bigger name for themselves, and with these other contests and stuff. And
in 3 hours, I'll bet they go through hundreds.
Yeah.
You don't think so?
Yeah, I think so too. 11 to 2. That's basically when our show is on, guys. So
so
out.
We get nothing, but you should go out there and get one for us. Tell us how it is.
Yeah, totally. Look at that. Looks good. I want to scan the crowd, see what the line looks like, but there he goes. Cranking them out. Let's get some sound.
We got to make sure that we watch this now, because as it gets closer and closer to lunchtime, I'll just get more and more hungry watching all these burgers being made.
I was gonna say, as we get closer to like midway or wrapping up the show, whenever we have food, something, events, or pictures to bring
it's
up,
brutal. It's absolutely
Cam
brutal.
just can't take it.
I'm so hungry all the time.
I know. Luckily, I ate a good amount this morning, so I'm good.
I had a nice bowl of Lucky Charms.
Oh, you
That's
did?
what I
The
had.
classic.
Yep, the classic.
Never Will Die. That's a great one. Live footage here, guys, of Z-Burger giveaway. And if you guys are checking in with us, let us know where you're watching from. We're here at Fox 5 Local News in the DC newsroom, bringing you this live show every day from 11 to 2-ish here on your YouTube channel and on our website, fox5dc.com. And we're going to mix it up today with a lot of different stuff. So stay with us and chat with us if you feel so inclined. If you have any questions, let us know. Any comments? You're watching this free burger giveaway here at Z-Burger, right down the street from us, just barely a couple blocks down the road in another area of DC called Tenleytown. And then they are working hard. These are going to be easier to make up because they're just quick and
oh yeah,
them
super
on a
easy.
bun.
I mean, it just somebody back there making that was like 20 to 30 at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Just flip them, get them out, get them in, easy.
Right.
I wonder how many people are gonna still get stuff on the burger.
Like throw it on themselves.
Or are gonna not even take the deal. Or just gonna
maybe.
like get bacon, get whatever.
Oh, like like add a little extra. Yeah. So and again, the founder Peter Newsham said, for years when someone ordered a plain burger, I yelled out to the cook, "Nothing burger." So the cooks actually think that I invented the term. But on Tuesday, people can come in. Here you go. Order a beef, turkey, or veggie nothing burger on our fresh buns, and they'll see what nothing burger really is. So kind of a taste of the real thing, the plain, original state of the burger that they have created at this little chain. Kind of cool. We're Washingtonians today, guys. Let you watch a little more as long as our footage comes in clear.
Okay. Thank you. 35. Onion coming up. Yes. Onion coming up, right? Good job. Onion coming up. Good. Thank you, my friend. One turn. Yeah, I was there. Hi there, my friend. Please, number 28, please. Right away. What kind of food, my friend? Calm down. Miss Minnie, calm down. Nothing, burger, please. My friend Joshua here. All right. Yes, sir. Thank you, my friend. Calm down. Sit for him, please. Shake her. You got American? Yes. One fry, please. Regular ring. Yes. Thank you, my friend. Small fry, please. One small fry, please. Thank you, Joshua. Take care of yes. Coming up. Thank you, my friend. You okay here? Yes.
So guys, you're watching this free giveaway here at Z-Burger. I think that might be the owner in the pink polo. It's gotta be. Maybe? I'm not positive.
He's the only person out of uniform. And it would make sense that he'd be there on a day.
When they're promoting.
Yeah, when they're promoting, when they're giving away a giveaway. So
I think it probably is, but not sure. But yeah, we were talking about some other stuff that was going on today too, guys. What were we chatting also last night? Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins. So confirmed he did not get his contract extension, and in a video released by the Redskins, team president, Bruce Allen,
Yeah.
is, essentially the GM, called him Kurt Cousins multiple times, as well as outlining a 5-year, $110 million offer, which is the best offer that they gave him. And you can read about it online for all the details, but essentially with Kirk Cousins' negotiating position, that was just an incredibly low ball offer.
Sure.
I mean, it still would have made him one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL, but just just the leverage he had, and the money he's going to make both under the franchise tag, under a hypothetical franchise tag next year, and on the free market next year as an unrestricted free agent, he'll make so much more. I mean, he's going to be probably, almost certainly, the highest paid player in NFL history.
So what is your thought? That was the right thing for him to be like? It was
definitely the right move by Kirk Cousins as far as a making money aspect to not re-sign. But the Redskins video with Bruce Allen's calling him Kurt, his name's
so
Kirk.
Odd.
I mean, and then saying, talking about this 5-year, $110 million offer, and talking about it as if Kirk Cousins was ridiculous not to resign, and trying to portray him as greedy, as money hungry, and as not loyal.
Yeah.
I mean, just put the nail in the coffin as far as him not resigning next year. I think. I mean, it was already unlikely, and this makes it, I think, confirmed that he's moving on. Baffling managerial decision from him, from the Redskins front office. I mean, one that you almost expect to see out of the Washington Redskins at this point.
Yeah,
they've had a history of making very questionable decisions, but this one might be the most questionable of all of them.
Wow. So how do you think DC's reacting now? I mean, you grew up here, you're a fan. I'm not as in tune with the Redskins because of just how I grew up.
I mean,
I haven't seen the headlines even today.
I mean, not happy with the Redskins. This whole situation was handled so poorly, and there was such an obvious way to go about it, and it just wasn't done. I mean, so the only possible explanation is that the Redskins don't believe that Kirk Cousins is their quarterback of the future, and they would rather take their chances in the draft and in free agency, I guess, with other people, which to me makes no sense. But that must be how they feel. I mean, he's set franchise records back-to-back seasons in pretty much every quarterback statistical category.
Yeah.
He's proved that he's good. He's really good. Whether he's great, he's probably not great yet.
Yeah.
He's probably not elite, but he's at the very least very good. And so to basically say, like, we don't want you. So kind of the 2-year track has been, we franchise tagged him this past season. Basically, so he had a good year 2 years ago in 2014.
Yeah.
And then we didn't, or in 2015, sorry. And then we didn't, and then we decided to franchise tag him this past season instead of signing him to a long-term deal as kind of a prove it contract, basically saying, okay, you had one good year, but we don't know if you're really the future, so before we commit so much long-term money to you, we're going to just franchise tag you one season, which seemed like a reasonable move. But the risk there was, they could have re-signed him long-term before last season for a relatively cheap deal, because he wasn't, he had one season to stand on, basically, and that was it. So he had not a lot of leverage, and we could have signed him, somewhere in the $20 million range on a per year basis, which is very, very affordable for an NFL quarterback. And if we had done that, knowing what we know now, that would have been a great deal. Now we decided not to do that. We decided to franchise tag him and put him on this 1-year prove it contract, which I have no problem with. You have two ways of doing it, and that's in many ways the less risky option, which I'm totally fine with. But the result is, if he proves it, if he proves to be worth it, we were then going to have to overpay him this year, or pay him significantly more than then we're going to pay him. You know, that was the
giveaway.
Now
Yeah,
we're
the
sure.
trade.
Now we're sure, but you have to pay him a lot more than, you know, what we were going to have to pay him under the uncertain terms of the year before. Okay, so he proved it. He bet on himself and he won.
They didn't follow through.
And now we're like, okay, well, he's too much now. Like we saw that coming. Like what did you want? The franchise tag on him to suck? Like that? Like just the whole.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just horribly mismanaged. As a Redskins fan, I'm pissed off about it.
Yeah, definitely some drama with that. We were talking about it in the morning meeting here because people were bringing it up, of course, being in Washington. So interesting going into the next season here.
Yeah, and kind of the added thing is I think that he'll, you know, this is going to be a distraction all year. It's not going to just go away. We have a quarterback that we are confident won't play with us next season. You know, reporters will be asking him about it all year. Like it'll be a weird locker room dynamic. I mean, how can you really be a captain and a leader if you're almost guaranteed to only be here for one more year? I mean, I think that, and anybody who tuned in yesterday heard Ben and I kind of argue about it for a while, but I this is just another reason why I'm not feeling that confident about the Redskins this year. I just think that it'll be too much off the field issue.
Bummer. I do remember 2 years ago. That was crazy time. You were in school probably then. Or
yeah.
You just
well, I mean, like I was. Well, yeah. So I was a freshman year at that point at school, but
Yeah. So anyway, that's what's new, guys, in football news from last night. What else is going on? Well, we're still watching this picture, guys, here at Z Burger in the bottom right corner. They're giving away free burgers today. If you're just joining us, kind of a cool little giveaway there. The owner promoting the Nothing Burger, which is the plain burger on a toasted bun, sort of a classic way to do their burger. And he wanted to do a little promotion for locals here today. So in Tenleytown, people need to say the secret password, which is Nothing Burger. There it is, bottom of your screen. And you guys can go there too. If you're around, let us know if you get one. It's from 11 to 2 in Tenleytown. It looks like the lines kind of died down at this point. They're hanging out. There's some camera crews going in. But I'm guessing lunch hour will be the busiest into the early afternoon. So this fast casual American place doing their thing today. Kind of a cool shot that we got behind the register there. But guys, we have a lot of different stuff that we're going to go into today. We have some stuff on Capitol Hill, of course, with the Republican version of the Trump Care bill failing yesterday. There's a lot of talk on that, and some speeches being made on the Senate floor, including right now that's going on. Also, more stuff coming locally in just a few minutes now. We're going to be getting footage live from our police chief, DC Police Chief Peter Newsham. Will have some words on an arrest made in the shooting of a 1-year-old child in Northeast DC. This happened last week or so, about July 10th, so about a week ago, 8 days ago or so. And they finally, they stuck to their word and they sought it out and they made an arrest. So Peter Newsham will have more on that. We'll bring that to you guys live as we sort of exit out of this scene. Looks like they're just kind of hanging out for now.
Yep, maybe get a burger of their own.
Yeah, we'll keep it around so we can see if anything cool happens. But wanted to start our show off with a little happy burger footage for you in Washington. So, guys, while we wait for the next event, we're going to have the D.C. Police Chief coming up soon. I'm going to throw it over to the Senate floor right now. Looks like Senator Tim Kaine is speaking on the events of the day yesterday, which I'm sure a lot of stuff about healthcare. So let's go over there. It looks like a pretty impassioned speech on the Senate floor. Here's Tim Kaine.
Something about healthcare, but we've not been allowed to have a hearing about this. When you have a hearing, you bring people up to the witness table. Patients like Charlie, who was in my office this morning, doctors, hospitals. You ask them what works, what doesn't work, what can be fixed. We haven't had the opportunity to hear from folks. So why wouldn't we do exactly what Senator McCain said yesterday? Senator McCain said, we've gone about this the wrong way. We should be the United States Senate. We should take advantage of the Senate procedures and the expertise on the Senate committees, including staff expertise. And we should assign these various bills to the relevant committees and have hearings and then come forward with a proposal that will actually improve health care for this country. I am completely confident that if we let the committees do the work that they are supposed to do, we will find improvements that can get bipartisan support and that will help Virginians and help Americans. And that just doesn't seem too much to ask. And I hope my colleagues will consider that, and I hope we will be engaged in those discussions soon. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Delaware.
I want to preface my remarks today by asking that you convey to your wingman, Senator John McCain, our colleague, our warmest best wishes and our hope that he is on his way to a speedy recovery and will be back here because we need him and we need his wisdom. I want to thank Tim Kaine for the leadership that he and Senator Shaheen are showing and an effort to try to help us stabilize the marketplaces. I believe in, we were with Senator Hassan over the weekend, we talked a lot about this, but what do we do now? I think this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity here. And I realize there's a fair amount of confusion as to which path to take or which way to go. And I just hope that we don't waste this opportunity. And I sent a message to the new chairman of the National Governors Association, to the new vice chairman of the National Governors Association, Brian Sandoval from Nevada, is the new chair. He's the the governor from Nevada, previously the vice chair, and Steve Bullock from Montana is the new vice chair. One's a Republican, the other's a Democrat. But I sent them a message this morning saying that it'd really be good to hear from the governors. And they've been working on a bipartisan letter. They've been working on it for a while. And this is really the time that it can make a real positive impact. We have 3 people literally sitting here, 4 of us literally lined up, who used to be part of the National Governors Association. I loved it, and I'm sure that Senator Shaheen, Senator Keene, and Senator Hassan did as well. But here's what I suggested that the governors may want to consider in their message. Number 1, urge us to hit the pause button. Hit the pause button. Let's just stop in place for a moment and pivot soon. Like not in September, not in August, but like now, like this week, pivot to stabilizing the exchanges. Number 3, return to regular order. Senator Kaine has already mentioned this. When I talked with Senator McCain last week, a couple of times briefly, we both talked about the need for regular order. People have good ideas on health care, introduce them. Committees of jurisdiction, hold hearings. Witnesses, including governors, come before the committees of jurisdiction, a couple of committees in the House, a couple of committees in the Senate, and let's hear from the experts, and let's certainly hear from the governors who have to run these Medicaid programs and have a lot of expertise in this area to offer us. And then I would say after the August recess, if we can actually do something real in stabilizing the exchanges, what a confidence builder that would be among us, and I think around the country. It would be just a great confidence builder. The other thing I would mention that when we come back after the August recess, don't just kind of muck around and wonder what we're going to do. We should pull together in a bipartisan way, something that we talked a lot about doing, we don't often do it, but to really do maybe a couple things. Say, let's figure out what we need to fix in the Affordable Care Act. Republicans believe the Democrats feel it's perfect and nothing should be changed. Well, I don't feel that way. And my guess is that most of our Democrats don't either. Anything that I've ever worked, every bill I've ever worked on was not perfect. And it can always be done better. And the same is true with big programs like Medicare, Social Security, veterans programs, civil rights. They can all be done better. And this is certainly the case as well. Let's fix the parts of the ACA that need to be fixed. Let's preserve the parts that ought to be preserved. And I would say again, to reiterate it, speaking on behalf of some recovering governors, including me, the governors need to be involved in this, heavily involved in this. And I suspect that each of the governors, former governors on the floor here with me today, when we were part of the NGA, we were not here on this floor. Actually, I was on this floor any number of times because governors had access to the floor. But we had many opportunities, many invitations to testify before Senate committees, House committees, on any wide range of issues. And I think we brought value, and we need to hear from them today. I'm going to go back and talk about how do we go about stabilizing exchanges. The first thing that would help would for the administration to stop destabilizing them. That would be a big help. And Senator Kaine has led on legislation and he's mentioned, I want to drill down on it just a little bit, that would provide reinsurance, much as we do in other ways in terms of Medicare Part D drug program. But use reinsurance as a very common tool, but use it to help stabilize the exchange. How would we use in our proposal? Say if this lady standing right in front of me were getting health care, and she was expensive in her health care needs, under our reinsurance plan, starting in 2018, 2019, 2020, first $50,000 in the health care that she used in year one, 2018, that the federal government, well, the insurance companies themselves actually would be on the hook for the first $50,000 of care that she would get. Between $50,000 and $500,000 under our proposal, the federal government would pay for 80% of it.
Hi guys, you're watching Fox 5 Live here in our Washington, D.C. digital newsroom. Right now you're watching some footage from the Senate floor. This is all live, talking about healthcare and other things, everything that came down from yesterday as the GOP version of Trump Care failed in the Senate, or they knew they weren't going to get the votes. Two of the senators backed out, and Senator McCain's still in surgery from his blood clot. So that's all going on in the Senate in Capitol Hill. But in the bottom right corner of your screen, we're actually going to go to local D.C. government police news. We're going to be hearing from MPD Chief Peter Newsham. He has an update on an arrest made in the shooting of a 1-year-old in Northeast D.C. last week. Now, this all came down when there was some violence at a scene, and there was a baby who was not the target necessarily of gunfire, but was shot in the scuffle. And he was eventually in stable condition, but Peter Newsham, vowed to find the person that did this. So now we're going to hear an update on that coming up shortly in this press conference. So for now, we're going to split screen it for you guys and listen in on the Senate floor, and then we'll go over to Police Chief for that update.
They're deductibles. And it's not really clear whether that's authorized, not really clear whether that's being funded, but it's just been done for a number of years. And the current administration has been saying, well, we don't know if we're going to continue to do that. And there's some folks that want to go to, maybe some states that want to go to court and say, you can't do that. Well, we need to pass a law and say, we're going to have these cost sharing reductions, and these subsidies will continue to be offered. The last thing, third thing that we need to do is to make clear that the individual mandate, or something as good as, at least as effective as the individual mandate, is going to be around. For the administration to say, well, we don't know if we're going to enforce the individual mandate. It just encourages young, healthy people not to get coverage. And we got to make it clear that that coverage is the individual mandate, or something as good as. It could be a proxy for, or maybe several things that work together that could be as effective as the individual mandate. And if they don't work, maybe we could just have the default position would be the individual mandate again. But we ought to have hearings on this kind of thing and discuss it and hear from all kinds of folks. The other thing I want to mention is just when I go around my state, my Lord, I've never heard people so interested in encouraging us. I think I'm regarded in my state, along with Senator Coons and our Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rogers, I think we're regarded as bipartisan people. We're Democrats. We're proud to be Democrats. We like to work with the Republicans too, and I think that's part of being a recovering governor. But the people in my state don't want on this subject, on health care reform going forward, they don't want a Democratic victory. They don't want a Republican victory. Frankly, they don't want a Trump victory. They want a victory for our country. That's what they want. They want a victory for our country. And you know what? So do I. And I think so most Democrats in this chamber, and most of the Republicans. And so let me just again, if I could make the suggestion, let's hit the pause button. Let's stop in place for right now. Let's pivot and figure out how we can stabilize the exchanges. I've laid out several ways to do that. Let's return to regular order. Hold hearings, bipartisan hearings. Have expert witnesses, including folks from all walks of life who know a lot about healthcare coverage, know a lot about healthcare. After the August recess, when we come back here, let's launch a real bipartisan effort to fix the things in the ACA that need to be fixed, and preserve those aspects that should be retained. And as I said before, we need governors at the table, not just recovering governors. We need governors at the table, and a bunch of other folks as well who have a lot to contribute. And if we do those things, we will, in the words of, I'm going to paraphrase Mark Twain. Mark Twain used to say, when in doubt, tell the truth. You'll confound your enemies and delight your friends. I think that's what he used to say. In this case, I would just say, paraphrasing Mark Twain, when in doubt, do what's right. When in doubt, do what's right. We'll confound our enemies and delight our friends. With that, I yield the floor. Thank you,
Mr. President.
Senator from New Hampshire.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Mr. President, I am honored to join my colleagues here today. I thank Senator Carper for his excellent suggestions and leadership in terms of reaching out to both current and former governors as we proceed on this issue. I'm very grateful to my colleague, Senator Kaine, for his leadership on the Help Committee and what he brings as a former mayor and governor. And I rise today to join my colleague from New Hampshire in supporting her efforts to help lower health care premiums for middle-class Americans and to stabilize the insurance marketplace. The Trump administration has been working to sabotage the individual market by playing games with cost-sharing reductions. Those cost-sharing reductions help lower out-of-pocket expenses, such as deductibles and copays for individuals with health insurance plans in the marketplace. This legislation from Senator Shaheen is a common-sense measure which would work to prevent the instability and chaos being pushed by the administration. I also join my colleagues in making clear that we are ready and willing to work across the aisle on priorities that will improve and build on the Affordable Care Act and bring down costs for people in New Hampshire and across the country. Mr. President, over the course of the last several months, we've seen that the partisan process Republican leadership has pushed with Trump Care simply won't work. It's going to take a bipartisan approach in order to make progress, not a senseless repeal bill that would pull the rug out from millions of Americans. I've seen firsthand that it's possible for Democrats and Republicans to come together in order to improve our health care system. As governor of New Hampshire, I worked across party lines to pass a bipartisan Medicaid expansion plan that delivered quality, affordable insurance to over 50,000 hard-working Granite Staters. And expansion has truly made a difference for communities across my state, particularly for people impacted by the heroin, fentanyl, and opioid crisis. Just last week, I visited Goodwin Community Health in Somersworth and heard from a woman named Elizabeth. At one point in her life, as a result of substance use disorder, Elizabeth was homeless, and she lost the custody of her son. But Elizabeth is now in recovery, and she works at the SOS Recovery Community Organization in Rochester, helping others get the support that they need. She said that she owes her recovery to the insurance she's received through Medicaid expansion and the Affordable Care Act. Elizabeth's story is a great example of the power of what's possible when we come together on bipartisan solutions to help improve the health of our people. This is the same approach that we need to take in the Senate, and I believe that there are areas for bipartisan cooperation that we should be working on in order to improve the Affordable Care Act. In addition to Senator Shaheen's legislation to stabilize the individual market, and in addition to the legislation you heard discussed by Senator Kaine and Senator Carper, there are other things we can do. I believe it's critical that we take on big pharma and bring down the cost of prescription drug prices, including allowing importing safe and affordable drugs and allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. And I believe we should eliminate the existing income cliff in the Affordable Care Act that blocks many middle-class individuals from receiving premium assistance. Mr. President, these are common-sense measures that we should be taking now.
All right, guys, looks like Peter Newsham is coming out right now. We're going to go over to this presser with DC Police Chief about an arrest made in the shooting of a 1-year-old in Northeast. Let's go listen in.
Everyone good? We good to start? Okay. Thank you for joining us on such short notice. I'm joined by Chief of Police, first of all, I'm Kevin Donahue, Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice, and I'm joined by Chief of Police Peter Newsham, Ward 6 Council Member Charles Allen, and members of the Metropolitan Police Department. We are here to announce an arrest in the July 10th shooting that resulted in the wounding of a 1-year-old child in the 1300 block of I Street Northeast. I will let Chief Newsham provide details in this case. But on behalf of Mayor Muriel Bowser, I want to thank the Metropolitan Police Department for their hard work and diligence in identifying and arresting the individuals responsible for this shooting. We are incredibly thankful that the child in this case is recovering at home with family. This shooting showed a reckless disregard for the lives of our community members. I want to thank our residents for the invaluable assistance they provided to the MPD officers who are working to close this case. Our residents will not tolerate being endangered by reckless individuals who disrespect our communities, especially our most vulnerable residents, our children, through the use of illegal guns. Today's arrest helps us bring justice to the victims of this crime. I'd like to ask Councilmember Charles Allen to say a few words, then have Chief Newsham provide details in this case, and then he'll open for questions.
Thank you, Kevin. First off, I just want to give my thanks to MPD. When I got to the scene that night, Chief Newsham was already there with Commander Kane and with all of our officers from the 1st District and across MPD. And Chief, I think you said that night that this shooting was reprehensible, and he couldn't be more right. Any shooting in our neighborhood is unacceptable, and we should not be able to tolerate that at all, especially when a young child, when a 1-year-old is injured. It is reprehensible. So I am very grateful, and I'm thankful for the work of MPD to make today's arrest. To get more information out. Also very grateful for the public and helping provide tips and information and helping share that with MPD so they can take their action. Fortunately, the 1-year-old is home and is with their family and is recovering well. But at no point should a 1-year-old ever have to be headed off to the hospital for this. So I'm glad of MPD's action, very grateful for their hard work, and look forward to the information the Chief's going to be able to help share about the ongoing case with this. Thank you very much.
All right, good morning. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Donahue. Thank you, Councilmember Allen. I also have Commander Leslie Parsons from our Criminal Investigations Division and Commander Morgan Kane from the 1st District who are here with me today. So on Monday, July 10th at about 9 p.m., members of the 1st District went to the alley in the rear of the 1300 block of I Street Northeast for the sound of gunshots. When they got on the scene, they found a 13-month-old child suffering from gunshot wounds. The small boy, was taken to a local hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. I want to mention the fact that DC Fire and EMS was there almost immediately to provide care to the young boy. We released a video in this case to the public. Members of the Metropolitan Police Department worked tirelessly. Thanks to the assistance of the community and thanks to the detective work, I'm very pleased to announce that we have made one arrest in the case early this morning, pursuant to a DC Superior Court arrest warrant. Members of the Capital Area Regional Fugitive Task Force arrested 39-year-old Derek Damon Watson of Northeast DC. The arrest was made in Southeast Washington, DC. Watson is charged with assault with a dangerous weapon and unlawful possession of a firearm. But we still need the public's assistance in this case. We have an additional arrest warrant for a 27-year-old Sahid Washington Sulu of Southeast DC. We will be handing out these flyers with a photograph of this wanted suspect. We need the public's help in helping us find this gentleman and bringing him into custody. We're also asking the community to continue to look at the video that we provided to assist us in identifying the 3rd suspect in this case. It is our belief that all 3 of these men were involved in some kind of a dispute where they resorted to firearms. There was more than one child that was in the area as these grown men were firing weapons at each other in our community. So I'm asking the public to please take a second look at that video. We will be releasing an updated version of the video that just shows the one person that we're continuing to try to identify. Lastly, I'd like to thank Detective David Gargak, who was the lead detective in this case, for all of his work. And I also want to encourage anybody who has any information to give us a call on 202-727-9099, or you can text us on 50411. Does anybody have any questions?
Chief, when something like that happens in our community, what does it do to that neighborhood? What does it do to us?
You know, I had an opportunity to go over there, and, you know, I got to tell you, it's a great community over there. People were very helpful, very friendly. It's very upsetting, you know what I mean? They were out there on a typical Monday summer evening. Young kids were out there. They were enjoying the evening out in the courtyard. And you had 3 grown men that decided to settle a dispute with firearms, with no regard for the fact that there were young kids in the area. You know, that kid is going to have to live with that for the rest of his life. We're very thankful that the injury was non-life threatening. But that's, you know, that's just something, and that's why I got to say the community has been great in this case, giving us information. I think everybody who lives there wants to make sure that the folks that are responsible for this are brought into custody.
Chief Newsham, Hugh McCray with ABC7 News here. What can you tell us about the second suspect you're looking for?
All we have is his identifiers. We have his name, you know, and his age. We will provide a photograph. I'm sure people have seen him out and about, people who know him. I'm pretty sure that anybody who associates with this guy probably feels very uncomfortable with the fact that he's responsible for injuring a 1-year-old boy in our community, and I'm hopeful that those folks will give us information to his location, or he can turn himself in and, you know, take some kind of accountability for his actions.
And do you know anything about Jeremiah, about the boy? How's he doing? Have you spoken to the family since?
Yeah, I have. I went over and saw. He's a great little kid, good-looking kid. You know, felt bad for the little guy. He's a tough guy. I saw him shortly after the incident. He was already up and around, so he was back in business pretty quickly.
Chief,
Anybody else?
Is it clear which suspect the bullet that hit the 1-year-old actually came from?
You know, that's really unimportant. Which bullet hit the child? We had grown men, like I said earlier, in a courtyard in our community where people were trying to enjoy the peaceful quiet of a summer evening, and they resorted to firearms. So each of them, in my opinion, is equally responsible for the fact that that little boy got injured as seriously as he did.
Tie any of this to gang activity or any other criminal activity? Is that right?
There's nothing right now to suggest this is any way gang related. Yeah.
Chief,
all right.
In general, summer is usually pretty tough in terms of crime in this city. How would you compare violent crime this summer versus previous years?
You know, we're not even halfway through the summer right now. As you know, we have a summer crime initiative that's been very successful to this point, driving down crime in our community. The members of the Metropolitan Police Department are out there every single day, and we put out a press release every week getting these illegal firearms out of our community. I think we're having an impact. I think the crime numbers would suggest that, and we're just hopeful if we continue to roll up our sleeves and do the work that the crime will keep going in that direction. And we shouldn't have a community where guns are discharged at any neighborhood at any time, not in Washington, D.C.
Chief, it wasn't long ago that Deputy Mayor Donahue put out a tweet showed that you had crime down compared to last year significantly in almost every category. What is the driving reason behind that?
You know, there's a whole bunch of reasons why crime goes down. Crime is not an easy issue to solve. I think I have to attribute the way that the mayor has really kind of held our feet to the fire as agencies, directors, because crime encompasses a whole bunch of things. It encompasses you know, affordable housing for folks, education, substance abuse issues, mental health issues. All of those things can contribute to violent crime in our communities. And each of the directors that's responsible for those particular things, and myself as the chief of police, is being held accountable to make sure that we're moving the crime in the right direction. And I think we're having a lot of success here in the city. All right, so thank you all very much. Thank you.
All right, guys, so that will do it with that press conference there with Peter Newsham. Looks like they did announce the person that they have arrested, a 39-year-old man from Northeast, and they're also still looking for one other suspect, so they're asking the public for their help. So that's the latest on that case, but definitely a good thing that they moved on that and made that arrest. And this was sort of a breaking news conference, so we didn't exactly know what was going to happen until early this morning. So that's that. I'm here in the studio with intern Cam, and Ben is joining us. Sometimes he comes in, slips his way in. We're kind of going around the city to see what's live and what's happening today and breaking. And I want to bring you quickly to a press conference from yesterday. Cam and I were talking about this. The woman that was shot in Minneapolis by police when she called about an assault.
Yeah, she called 911. About an assault, and then the police arrived, and she was shot dead by the police.
Yeah.
And kind of the biggest mystery here is that there's no body cam footage, there's no dashboard footage. So all this, all the precautions that have been placed, surrounding police and police interaction with the public recently, none of them kind of succeeded in actually helping in this situation.
Yeah.
So we're curious to see what the family says.
Yeah,
exactly,
so
as far as
yesterday the fiance spoke and the family spoke, and we actually were waiting for that conference to start, and it didn't. So we didn't bring it to you live yesterday, but I got footage of it from yesterday for today's show. So we're going to go there now. Remember, this is from yesterday late in the afternoon into the evening. Some words from the family on the Australian national, Justine Damon, and her fiance speaks here about sort of his thoughts regarding all of this. So let's listen in on that.
Time, and we thank you in advance for respecting the privacy of our family.
Thank you for being here. First of all, I want to thank our family here and friends from all over the world, our colleagues and our neighbors for the amazing outpouring of love and support that we received. Our hearts are broken and we are utterly devastated by the loss of Justine. As you know, it was Justine who called 911 on Saturday evening, reporting what she believed was an active sexual assault occurring nearby. Sadly, her family and I have been provided with almost no additional information from law enforcement regarding what happened after police arrived. We've lost the dearest of people, and we are desperate for information. Piecing together Justine's last moments before the homicide would be a small comfort as we grieve this tragedy. The death of Justine is a loss to everyone who knew her. She touched so many people with her loving and generous heart. She was a teacher to so many in living a life of openness, love, and kindness. Our lives are forever changed as a result of knowing her. She was so kind and so darn funny. She made us all laugh with her great wit and her humor. It is difficult to fathom how to go forward without her in my life. We ask that you respect our privacy as we grieve the loss of our dear Justine. We will provide more statements as information comes to light. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So, yeah, basically
again,
the
guys,
one.
so just a quick tribute there to his wife, the woman who was shot there in Minneapolis. Not a lot of information coming out. Obviously, he was still very, very traumatized, very heartbroken about that horrible scenario that's still in question, still under investigation in Minneapolis. We're going to shoot it back over now to Capitol Hill, to the Senate floor. Looks like Senator Jack Reed is now taking the stand. Let's hear from him.
He emphasized that the public sector needed to work closer with the private sector to get more cost-effective results while ensuring our warfighters have the best equipment at their disposal. It is that kind of leadership that the Department of Defense needs as our nation faces as diverse an array of threats and challenges to our national security as at any point in our history. Based on Mr. Shanahan's qualifications and experience, as well as his testimony before the Senate Armed Services Committee, I believe he is fully qualified for the job. Therefore, I will vote in favor of his nomination to be the next Deputy Secretary of Defense, and I trust that he will do his best to lead the men and women who ably serve this nation and courageously serve this nation. On a final note, if confirmed, Mr. Shanahan will be relieving Bob Work, who has served this nation ably and selflessly for most of his life. Bob Work served in the United States Marine Corps for 27 years, rising to the rank of colonel. In 2009, he was confirmed as Undersecretary of the Navy, where he...
All right, apologies, guys. Our source is just switching out here. We're actually going to go over to Nancy Pelosi. She'll be speaking here also on Capitol Hill. So we lost our source on the Senate floor, but we'll be waiting around for this and also bringing you some other news and live stuff that's happening around the city, around the country for you very shortly. So stay with us.
It is officially afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm very honored to be here with this distinguished group of members of the House of Representatives who are helping us all honor our oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and the democracy that it stands for. I want to say before yielding to them that I want to send my best wishes, prayers to Senator McCain, wishing him well. Apropos of this meeting here, my first bill that I worked on when I was elected whip was McCain-Feingold, and we were able to pass it out of the House. It was called Me and Shay then in the House, but McCain-Feingold, and its goal was to reduce the role of money in politics, and it did. And we worked in a bipartisan way to get that done. I hope that we can return to that model. A few years later, as you know, the courts and the Citizens United decision and the McCutcheon and Shelby decisions have increased the role of money in politics. We're here to talk about how we reverse that. I want to extend deep, deep gratitude to John Sarbanes, who has been the chair of the Democracy Task Force, and the others who are gathered here. He will introduce them. I just want to acknowledge the great work that they are doing. As you know, we have instituted a DARE, an acronym, D-A-R-E, disclose. Where did this money come from? Amend the Constitution to overturn Citizens United. Reform our campaign finance laws, as Mr. Sarbanes does with his law, and empower, remove obstacles of participation to voting in our country. Again, I salute the actions of our colleagues and the organizations outside that they are working with on this, all of us, to strengthen our democracy, to weaken the cynicism that people have about the effect of their vote. The middle class is the backbone of our democracy. We have to work for economic policies that strengthen the middle class. We cannot do that effectively unless we reduce the role of money in politics. With that, I'm pleased to yield to the distinguished gentleman from Maryland with great pride in his leadership, Congressman John Sarbanes.
Thank you, Leader Pelosi. This is actually a very exciting day because we are bringing together folks who've been very focused on this issue of reform. They've taken a leadership role. I want to thank Leader Pelosi for giving the Democracy Reform Task Force the challenge, the charge, the assignment of assembling a lot of very good reform proposals that have come forward from our caucus in recent months that address ethical lapses that we see in the Trump administration and here in Congress from folks that don't want to take on the Trump administration, that push back on the influence of big money, on dark money, and on this sense of voter disillusionment, people feeling that they're being disenfranchised out there. We've got to address these concerns. So we're fighting back against the lack of accountability that we see in the Trump administration and from special interests, and putting forward an affirmative set of proposals. The By the People project is an effort that we've undertaken. It's well underway to bring together these proposals into a comprehensive package of democracy reforms that we can take out to Americans who are feeling left out, locked out. We don't have to look at surveys, although the surveys are very powerful on this question. We can just base it on talking to our constituents. When you go home, any member here will tell you that people come up to you, they tell you they feel like their voice doesn't matter in Washington, that they're left out, that they're locked out. They have a deep cynicism and anger and frustration. And our job is to make sure that we respond to that in a respectful way. The president said he was going to do it. He said he was going to drain the swamp, that he was going to bring accountability to Washington. He's done absolutely the opposite. He suffers, and his administration appears to suffer from ethical blindness when it comes to recognizing conflicts of interest rules and basic ethical standards. And he's basically said to the big money and the special interests, if you pay for the red carpet, I'll roll it right into the White House and give you influence. So we believe that he broke his fundamental promise. One of the key promises that he made to the American people was, I'm going to be your voice. I'm going to come up here and clean this place up and restore accountability. He broke that promise, and I think it's because fundamentally he doesn't really care about reform. He tries to talk a good game, but his heart isn't in it. He doesn't care about those basic standards of accountability. Democrats do care about that. And so when we go back to our districts in August, we want people to know that the By the People project is well underway, that we're assembling proposals of the Democratic caucus into a comprehensive package of democracy reforms. So let's talk about what those are. I want to thank my colleagues who are here today, many of whom are serving as vice chairs of the Democracy Reform Task Force, and I want to thank them for doing that, all of whom are helping to lead this effort on reform and responding to the desire in the public to see more accountability. The first area of reform has to do with pushing back on the influence of big money and special interests. There's a lot of different ways to do that. One way is to change how we fund campaigns by establishing small donor matching systems of public financing that put everyday Americans back in charge so that we have a government of the many, not the money. That's a phrase, Leader Pelosi, that you use often and I think is spot on. But we also have to rein in the outside spending that was unleashed by the Citizens United case. Nobody has led that fight more than Ted Deutsch, who's working to propose a constitutional amendment and show how we can put limits, reasonable limits, on this outsized spending that we see by special interests. So I want to turn it over to Ted.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I am honored to be part of this team assembled here by Leader Pelosi and Chairman Sarbanes. And I know one thing for certain, and that is that Russia shouldn't have any say in our elections. But I know something else that is equally true. Wealthy donors, corporations, and special interests shouldn't be allowed to use cash to corrupt our elections either. Russia attacked our elections by infiltrating the Trump campaign. They targeted made-up news to important counties, and they launched sophisticated hacks against at least 21 state election systems. But our elections were already at risk before Russia's attacks. They've been corrupted by a flood of political cash. The Supreme Court unleashed unlimited spending in the Citizens United decision when they said that cash doesn't corrupt. But we know that that's not true. We knew it when Congress passed bipartisan limits in 2002. We knew it when Citizens United tore those limits apart, and we know it now after a string of billion-dollar elections. We've seen proof of Justice Breyer's warning in his dissent in the McCutcheon case. When enough money calls the tune, the general public will not be heard. That's why I've introduced the Democracy for All Amendment to overturn Citizens United. The Democracy for All Amendment will put the American people back in charge to get money out of politics. I'm proud to be a part of Leader Pelosi's task force to take back our democracy, and I am thankful that we have strong leadership from Chairman Sarbanes and my fellow vice chairs, all of the committed members and leaders here today, to ensure that America is not of, by, and for Donald Trump. It is not of, by, and for the big banks. It is not of, by, and for dark money. We are here today, and our efforts are focused on ensuring that our Congress and our government is of, by, and for the people. And with that, I am proud to turn it over to a leader in the effort to help bring about greater disclosure in our political finance system. And I turn it over to my good friend, David Cicilline.
Good afternoon. I am delighted to be here. I want to begin by thanking Leader Pelosi for making reform of our democracy a central part of her leadership. I particularly want to thank Chairman Sarbanes for his passionate and steady leadership on the Democracy Reform Task Force, and all of my colleagues who are here today for their critical leadership on this really important set of issues. We're here today because the American people have lost confidence that government is working for them. They feel like Washington is rigged and that our political system only works for insiders and powerful corporate special interests like big oil and Wall Street, and that it only does the bidding of the wealthiest among us and ignores the needs of working families. And you know what? They're right. The influx of massive, unrestricted, and secret political spending by corporate special interests has prevented progress on many of the issues most important to working families. And that's why millions of Americans can't find a job that provides them with a living wage. It's why millions of working men and women don't have paid family leave. It's why prescription drug prices are out of control. It's why we continue to give billions of dollars in tax subsidies to big oil companies. At the same time, we've just pulled out of the Paris Accords. It's why health care coverage for millions of Americans is being threatened in order to give a $600 billion tax cut to the richest people in this country. And that's why this project, the People's Project, is so important. We're not going to fix what's wrong with our country until we fix the way campaigns are run and end the influence of secret money in our elections. I'm very proud that part of this agenda is the Disclose Act, a legislation which I've introduced to shine a light on secret political spending so that the American people know what powerful special interests are trying to influence their vote. The Disclose Act requires public reporting by corporations, unions, super PACs, and other outside groups to the Federal Election Commission within 24 hours of making a campaign expenditure of $10,000 or more. It requires corporations to stand by their campaign ads by disclosing who's responsible for the content of the ad and who's paid for it. And it requires corporations to disclose their campaign-related spending to their shareholders. And finally, it will require lobbyists to disclose expenditures made in conjunction with their attempts to influence lawmakers. When the American people look at Washington today, they see a government that is bought and paid for by Wall Street and big corporate interests. They deserve better. They deserve a government that works for them. And I'm proud to be standing here with so many of my colleagues who are committed to transparency and to returning power to the American people. And I'll end by saying that as we finish the work of developing and launching our united democratic message, reforming the way our elections are run and getting big money out of our political system is a central part of that work. And I am now pleased to turn it back.
Thanks a lot, David. So we've talked about the importance of pushing back on big money and its influence on our system, but there's other things that are key components of a reform package and making the voters feel respected and empowered. One of those has to do with partisan gerrymandering, the process by which districts are drawn, which leaves many Americans feeling kind of disrespected out there, and we've heard that as we move around our districts. Zoe Lofgren has been a leader here on this issue. She's really pulled together the best thinking on how we can fix this problem once and for all. Let me turn it over to you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be part of this task force with the leadership of Congressman Sarbanes and Leader Pelosi. We've heard about the need for Americans to once again feel that they're in charge of their government. You know, recently there was a poll taken, and a majority of Americans felt that the Congress and the government was not really within their control. That's completely wrong. That is something we need to change. Part of it is changing the role of money, disclosing, and others, but part of it is changing how districts are drawn. You know, every American's vote should be equal to every other one, but when you have partisan redistricting, that's not the case. You know, the political elites of this country draw districts to serve their interests, not to serve the voters' interests. And that's done by both parties. Districts are drawn and elected officials draw their voters. The voters don't select the elected officials. It's important to know that that can change. Arizona, a red state, and California, a blue state, adopted nonpartisan redistricting commissions that are just basically equal and drawn without regard to the political parties. I think that's an essential element of reform because the voters should choose their elected officials. The elected officials should not be choosing their voters.
Thanks very much, Zoe. We appreciate your good work. When you think about how we can strengthen our democracy, ensure that people have a voice, there's no reform really more important than protecting access to the ballot box, making sure that the franchise is protected. We're very lucky. The Democracy Reform Task Force has a number of vice chairs, Barbara Lee, Elijah Cummings, and others who have been connected for many years to efforts to make sure that voters are empowered, and they are making sure that the proposals within the caucus that relate to that are part of our thinking in terms of shaping an overall comprehensive package. I see that we've got Pramila Jayapal here. She is a recent addition to our caucus, but she is not a recent advocate when it comes to voter empowerment initiatives in Washington State. She really led some of the edgiest efforts in the country to make sure that people's voices are protected and voters are respected at the ballot box and beyond. So I'd love to have Pramila come up and say a few words.
Thank you so much, Leader Pelosi, for your leadership, as always, and to Chairman Sarbanes for the incredible amount of work that's gone into really developing a strong legislative package that will help us to protect the average person's voice in our democracy. And I am proud to come from Washington State, where in the state Senate I introduced an automatic voter registration bill, actually with the Republican Secretary of State, because we all understand that democracy is stronger when everyone participates. And we thank Chairman Sarbanes for his help when in Seattle we passed our first publicly financed elections, which are now actually happening, where everybody gets a democracy voucher and gets to actually participate at the same levels and not be thrown aside by big money in politics. It is clear that Americans' basic democratic right, the right to vote, is under assault. And in states across the country, Republican-controlled legislatures are unfortunately blocking access to the ballot box. Tomorrow, Trump's farcical voter fraud commission will host its inaugural meeting. But we know that this sham commission has one cynical goal in mind, and that is making it harder for Americans to exercise their right to vote. So I want to call attention to my colleagues, Representatives Elijah Cummings, John Conyers, Benny Thompson, and Robert Brady, who sent a letter today urging Vice President Pence to demand the resignation of Chris Kobach from his position as Vice Chairman of the Commission, and that he rescind Mr. Kobach's unprecedented request for sensitive voter information. House Democrats on the Democracy Reform Task Force are fighting back with this By the People project. We need automatic voter registration. We need to repair the damage done to the Voting Rights Act by the Supreme Court's Shelby decision, and we need to modernize our voting system for the 21st century. We should be fighting together, Republicans and Democrats, to ensure that every person who is eligible gets registered to vote, including, by the way, new American citizens. And now, as a member of Congress, I pledge to continue this work and work with this incredibly distinguished group of colleagues at the national level to make sure that our right to vote is protected. Thank you again, Chairman Sarbanes, for your tremendous leadership.
Thank you, Pramila. We're so excited to have Pramila and other members of the freshman class joining us here and carrying this fight. We know, finally, that government cannot operate effectively with the respect of the people if leaders are not governed by basic ethical standards. And many in our caucus, you've seen this over the last 6 months, I mean, and there's an obvious reason for this, have stepped up with proposals on how we can strengthen ethics. We can make sure that the executive branch is abiding by basic conflict of interest rules. There are robust reform proposals that have been submitted, a lot of them. One of the efforts of the By the People project over the next period of time is going to be to synthesize those into a critical component of this overall reform package. Jamie Raskin, who's also new to Congress, but definitely not new to these issues and brings a wealth of experience and expertise. He's a constitutional scholar. He's an ethics watchdog, so I'd like him to talk a little bit about the ethics piece of this. Jamie.
Thank you very much. When we moved from monarchy to democracy, we replaced a system of government as a money-making operation.
Hi guys, just checking in with you here. It's Molly Nevola at Fox 5 Live in the Washington, D.C. digital newsroom. You're watching House members right now address the press here on a media availability on Capitol Hill. It started with Nancy Pelosi, House Minority Leader, and then some other members here talking about health care. This is all live, so we're bringing it to you live. Whatever's happening, whatever sources we have for you, we want to bring it live so you can see throughout the day what's going on in town and in relevant news. We're going to take it back into the studio here in just a little bit and change gears a little bit. So stay with us, and I hope you're enjoying the show and the stream, and we'll be back with you guys shortly.
And corrupt his integrity. And that's the basic principle, which in normal times people understand as a matter of common sense. But in tough times, we can see how we really do need a strong ethics machinery to enforce that principle. People cannot be the judges of their own cases, and we've got to make sure that the government remains zealously committed to the people rather than to the private interests of people who are in government.
Thank you very much, Jamie. So as you can see, this covers a lot of territory when you start thinking about what kind of reforms do we need to implement to restore credibility with the American people. That's what this is about. We have to listen to the fact that people are frustrated and angry. We have to bring to this conversation with the public a candor and a humility and a recognition that people perceive all of us up here as sort of suffering from these defects that are created by big money and special interests. But the Democratic caucus is the caucus that's putting forth a meaningful set of reforms. So the By the People project is going to go out there We're going to bring people's voices in. We're going to help to refine some of the proposals that you've already heard about and develop others into a comprehensive package. We'll be working with the committees of jurisdiction, John Conyers on the Judiciary Committee, Bob Brady on the House Administration Committee, and others in our caucus to make sure that the By the People project gets all of the input and connectivity that it needs as we move forward. And we're excited about this. This has got to be an important part of the Democratic message as we move forward because it responds to the way people feel. So again, I want to thank Leader Pelosi for giving us this charge, saying let's step up on reform and show Americans what we stand for. We're going to do that. That's what this is about today. And I want to thank my colleagues for coming. I'll turn it back over to the leader for a second if she'd like, and then we can have a couple of questions.
I thank all of our colleagues, and we had been joined earlier by Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who had to go to a committee meeting. But and when we're working on these issues, as has been mentioned, we're working with Mr. Conyers, but also Mr. Clyburn, our assistant leader, John Lewis, Terry Sewell of Alabama on issues that relate to voting rights and voter suppression and the rest. So this is the point of the spear of how we go forward with this, and many of our colleagues that I mentioned are part of this operation. I just want to read this one thing because it's July. We came back from the 4th of July celebration, and I saw this article, and it said, have you ever wondered, now our founders, they sacrificed their lives, their liberty, their sacred honor to establish this democracy. It was quite a remarkable thing. But did you ever wonder what happened to the 56 men who signed the Declaration of Independence? 5 signers were captured by the British as traitors and tortured before they died. 12 had their homes ransacked and burned. 2 lost their sons serving the Revolutionary War. Another had 2 sons captured. 9 of the 56 fought and died from wounds or hardships of the Revolutionary War. They signed and they pledged their lives, their fortune, and their sacred honor. What kind of men were there? 24 were lawyers and jurists. 11 were merchants. 9 were farmers and large plantation owners, men of means, well-educated, but they signed the Declaration of Independence knowing full well that the penalty would be death if they were captured. Carter Braxton of Virginia, a wealthy planter and trader, saw his ship swept from the sea by the British Navy. He sold his home and properties to pay his debts. He died in rags. Thomas McKean was so hounded by the British that he was forced to move his family almost constantly without pay, and his family was kept in hiding. His possessions were taken from him, and poverty was his rewards. Vandals or soldiers looted the properties of Dillery, Hall, Clymer, Walton, Gwinnett, Hayward, Rutledge, Middleton, other signers. At the Battle of Yorktown, Thomas Nelson noted that the British General Cornwallis had taken over the Nelson home for his headquarters and quietly urged George Washington to open fire. The home was destroyed. Francis Lewis lost his home and property. John Hart was driven from his wife's bedside, and she was dying. Their 13 children fled for their lives. His fields were gristmill and laid to waste, and for more than a year he lived in forests and caves, returning home to find his wife dead and his children vanished. So take a few minutes while enjoying the 4th of July, this says, but as we ponder the sacrifices that so many people made at the start of our country, what Abraham Lincoln did to keep our country together, what the suffragettes did to expand the right to vote, what the civil rights leaders have done to expand that right to vote, and understand what our responsibility is to protect what so many people sacrificed so much to achieve for our country. Establishment of democracy, first time in the history of the world. Aren't we proud of our country? Let's work in as far as we can in a bipartisan way. As I said with Senator McCain at the beginning, that was the 2002 law that was referenced, where we worked together to diminish the role of money in politics. As Mr. Sarbanes said, we want a government of the many, not of the money. We want a government where people choose their elected officials, not elected officials choosing their voters. So with that, again, I thank the task force for the work that they have done, the work that they will do. Mr. Sarbanes has offered to answer any questions, as I'm sure his colleagues will as well. I can, but first let's stay on this subject for a moment. Does anyone have any questions about this? Any other comments, my colleagues, that you want to make?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. And thank you for, Mr. Cicilline is one of our co-chairs of our policy committee, and I'm so glad that you made the connection between making a difference in policy and reducing the role of money. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sarbanes, for your extraordinary leadership. What was the question? I mean, specifically, I know it's about health care. Yes, the repeal and the other actions that the Senate are talking about could take us up to 32 million people losing their access to health care and health insurance. Really a monstrosity. But as the Democratic leader, Mr. Schumer, said on the floor today, we look forward to a time when we can go forward. I don't know if he said that, but how we go forward would be that we have to recognize we cannot eliminate the taxes on the high end. We cannot cut Medicaid, and we must do this under the regular order. But first, the Republicans in the Senate have to complete their business. If their next order of business is to repeal the Affordable Care Act, I doubt they would have the votes to take that up, but let's see. And as soon as that's finished, of course, we have stood ready from the first day the president became president to extend a hand of friendship to talk about how we can improve and update the Affordable Care Act, and stand ready to do so as soon as the Senate decides that it's finished with its business. Yeah? Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Well, I would hope so. It's about the American people. Your question as to what would they do to allow us. The president in a statement said today his health care proposals were defeated because he didn't have the cooperation of any of the Democrats and some of the Republicans. No, he has never really been about increasing access, lowering cost, improving benefits. That's what the Affordable Care Act is about. So the reason the Republicans in the leadership in the Senate have found themselves in the situation there is because people have spoken out. Nothing is more eloquent to a member of Congress than the voice of his or her own constituents. We all know that. The town halls worked. The outside groups weighed in with not political organizing, but with the storytelling of people and what the Affordable Care Act means in their lives and what taking it away would do to the health and well-being of their families, what their assault on Medicaid means to the good health of our country. So it's not about them and us. That's inside maneuvering. It's about the outside message and mobilization from so many people calling their senators and their members of the House and saying, listen to my story. And as I said yesterday at one of the filibusters on the lawn outside the Capitol, we believe that there's some goodness in the hearts of our Republican colleagues. Otherwise, we wouldn't be telling these stories. Hopefully, it will be falling on fertile territory where people will listen, will learn. And when they know, they will care about what their monstrosity of mean legislation means in the lives of the American people. Thank you all very much. Thanks for coming.
All right, guys, we're back in the newsroom here. Molly and intern Cam, there he is. We're back. We're both battling a little bit of a summer cold, which makes no sense, being sick in the summer.
No sense at all, yeah. No, I was laying asleep for hours last night thinking about how ridiculous it is that I was getting sick right now.
It's the worst in the summer.
It's like 100 degrees out.
But guys, you were just watching House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi and other House members speak about health care in a weekly media availability that they hold on Capitol Hill that was live. And right now, Cam, you were just talking about something about the Redskins that you were just reading that sort of justified what happened last night with Kirk Cousins.
So the Kirk Cousins thing, obviously, and it's been, I've talked about it a decent amount now, and I still think it's a horrible move, especially the way it was handled. But I did read an article, the first article I've seen that kind of defended the Redskins, which is tough to do. And they didn't defend kind of how it was done. They didn't, the whole press conference, the calling him Kurt, the way they portrayed his decision as kind of a money grab move. They were all like, yeah, that was all crap. But they kind of made the point.
Attention Fox Station, I'm Edge Live Channel 1. We're taking you to the Senate.
He's not an elite quarterback.
Party policy luncheon stakeout.
He's really probably not even a great quarterback.
He's good, but not great.
Edge Live Channel 1.
And they actually, I think, don't even quite think he's a good quarterback. I think that they just think he was kind of a product of the offense, which obviously makes it more acceptable. But so basically, we're paying an average quarterback well above average money, or that's what we would have had to do.
Right.
And so they're saying, like, look, yeah, I mean, obviously, as far as your consistency, we have a more certain future with Kirk Cousins as quarterback, but not paying him $29 million is going to end up actually being a good deal once he, better for us in the long run. It just forces us to move on quicker from kind of an average quarterback.
Yeah. So anyway, guys, if you're just joining us, we're talking about some of the sports news of the day from the Redskins decision last night in DC sports, I guess. But if you're just joining us too, let us know where you're watching from and what you think. Hey, Stig, nice to see you if you're still on the stream. We're just kind of discussing stuff of the day, and that's interesting that you saw that article that sort of swayed you back to understand.
Yeah, and I'm not totally. I mean, I still think it's bad. But I guess it makes me like less pissed, maybe more like, okay, we'll wait and see.
A little more open.
I mean, I don't know. I just think I still believe that if since we're now not going to sign him, pretty much guaranteed not going to sign him, we should 100% trade him. There's no reason to have him play a year for us this year.
Yeah.
When we're not a serious Super Bowl contender at all. So at that point, literally all we're doing is we're just getting a worse draft pick this upcoming season in what's projected to be a quarterback heavy draft, especially at the top, and where we're going to lose our starting quarterback anyway. So and then once we lose him, we'll get a third round compensatory pick, which I mean is, I don't know, like third round pick, sure, good, but it's okay at best. Certainly not worth Kirk Cousins. I mean, if we traded him, we could almost definitely get something better than a third round pick.
Right.
So
you're saying.
So what I'm saying is we should trade him, and this year we'll suck. We'll go 3-13 or 4-12, and it'll be tough to watch. It'll be tough to watch football. But I just think it'll be better for us. I think there's no reason to have a stop. Just a 1-year option when we're not going to re-sign him, and we're just setting ourselves up long term, like worse long term.
Interesting insight there from intern Cam in the newsroom. All right, guys. Right now we're getting live a stakeout, if you will, on Capitol Hill. This often happens when there are big decisions, or rather lack thereof, decisions that are made on Capitol Hill in the Senate and the House, and they kind of wait for them to come out and speak. You can see here. I'll flash you over to the screen. There it is. They're setting it up and getting ready for this. So we don't really know when it's going to happen. We're going to keep our eye on it to bring you this live from Capitol Hill to see which senators are going to come out and make a little statement. We'll get this for you guys live. So that's pretty much what's going on in politics news, Capitol Hill stuff, healthcare stuff, of course, as we've been talking about it for the past few weeks. But let's change gears a little bit, too, and go really quickly into entertainment. This is really cool. Our entertainment reporter, Kevin McCarthy, so awesome at reviewing films, loves the movie industry, and recently sat down with Christopher Nolan, actually, director of Dunkirk, and talked about Hans Zimmer's score of that movie. So we've been talking about this movie. It's out. He's recommending it as like the #1 film of the year. I'm definitely going to go see it this weekend. Super excited about it. So I want to play you guys this interview that Kevin taped, and it's cool. It's just some cool insight into what the film is all about, and the inner workings behind it, and then we can chat about it. So let me bring you over there. We'll watch this just for a couple minutes.
Obviously, the running time is something that I was so fascinated by. So when I first heard that it was like 1 hour and 47 minutes, I thought that was really interesting because usually movies are based in a World War II setting, or like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So I'm curious, was that something you intended on from the beginning?
I wanted it to be as intense an experience as possible, and therefore as lean and stripped down and short an experience as possible. You can only sustain the degree of suspense and tension that we wanted from the film for so long before you exhaust the audience. I think perhaps, people hearing that I was doing a film about Dunkirk, particularly British people who know the story already, thinking big historical epic, they're imagining a 3-hour film with a lot of talk and all the rest. What I did is I wrote a script that was 76 pages, just really half the length of my other screenplays, because I didn't want to tell the story in words. I didn't want the theatrics of people telling the audience why you should care about them. I wanted to care about them just because of the physical situation that they were in. And in that way, build up a subjective experience of the events at Dunkirk that would hopefully have a cumulative quality, emotional quality through the course of the film. It will pay off at the end of the film without ever being overly theatrical or sentimentalizing, these real-life events. The paradoxical physical situations that people were in Dunkirk, the overall situation itself of the 400,000 men who practically within sight of home can't get there. That was the driving force for this kind of subjective storytelling, and that was what I wanted to get across more than anything that would be overly, I suppose, theatrical. And so the relentless pacing of it and the stripped-down nature of it was something that I was very determined to stick with right from the beginning before I wrote the script.
The enemy tanks have stopped.
Why?
Why waste precious tanks when they can pick us off from the air like fish in a barrel? There are 400,000 men on this beach.
This is the coolest thing I've ever heard. Zimmer took the ticking from your own watch to make the sound of the ticking in the movie. He synthesized it. Can you tell me that story? I mean, I'm a big Zimmer fan. I love how you use his score as a leading character. To me, it's one of the leading characters in the film. Do you have the watch on today? What watch did he use it
I don't.
from?
It's actually a pocket watch of mine. I have a bunch of different watches, and this is a particular pocket watch. And I made a series of recordings of different watches and different ticking sounds because I wanted that to be the sort of seed that the whole score would grow from. And then I handed those over to Hans, the best one in particular. He then took it and was able to synthesize it, took it, manipulate it in different ways, and it sort of creates the template or almost the tempo map for the entire score and the entire film.
When you're showing the action sequences, you go from the 65 to the IMAX shots. And I'm curious, I know the editor, Lee Smith, does that a lot in editing, but I'm curious, when you're shooting on the day, how do you decide what shots will be 65 millimeter and what shots will be IMAX?
It's been different on the different films where we've mixed formats. On this film, we chose to mix our IMAX 70mm photography with 5x 65mm photography, which is closer in resolution than the usual 35 that we've used in the past. So we didn't worry as much in production about mixing the formats. We try to choose particular types of scene that will lend itself to one format or the other. The overriding impetus for mixing the formats is that the IMAX camera is so loud. Doing intimate dialogue scenes with it can be very challenging. I don't like to ADR dialogue, I don't like to add it afterwards. I like to use the real recordings. So that pushes you, the scenes on the boat, for example, on the Moonstone, where you're in very intimate settings, that pushes you towards the 65mm format so you can get better recordings. And then in the edit suite, what we're deciding is what aspect ratio we assign to each scene and when we blow out bigger and when we come in smaller. It's generally something we do towards the end of the process as we've really found the shape of the film.
Super cool interview there with our Kevin McCarthy and Christopher Nolan, the director. He also directed Inception, Memento. You might remember some of his films. That must have been such a cool sit down for Kevin.
All the Batmans too.
Yes,
Batman Returns. Batman, the Dark Knight, which is obviously widely considered one of the best movies of all time. Really,
Kevin really scores some of the greatest interviews. And talking about Hans Zimmer, he's a fan of Hans Zimmer's score, which he scores this movie, and I'm really excited to see it this weekend. So that was just a cool little sit down, and also really intriguing. Like we talked about, that this is a shorter movie. That this is rarely.
Yeah, I mean,
rarely does.
A lot of Nolan's movies are in the 2.5 hour, 2 hour 45 minute range.
Right.
But now an hour 45. It's as he said, it's supposed to just be incredibly intense, and you can't sustain that intensity for 2.5 hours. So he decided just to pack it all into one, hour and 45. Just.
Right, I love that. I'm really looking forward to seeing that and seeing how it's smushed down and really intense and really, I'm sure, every moment really well done, really thought out. Just a really cool interview. So I wanted to bring that to you guys for a little entertainment news. Hope you're enjoying the show. You're watching Fox 5 Live, midday news, live news here in the digital studio. While we're still kind of waiting on the Senate, this is right here, a live look at sort of the hallways in this Senate stakeout while we wait for people to come by and get any live updates there. I'm going to bring you over to an event from earlier this morning. Vice President Pence was speaking at the National Retail Federation Summit right here in D.C. at the Hyatt in D.C. I guess over more than 200 retailers from across the country were there, kind of following in the steps of yesterday's Made in America at the White House?
Yeah,
all the small
Made in
businesses.
America.
Yeah, some of the, or every state, every United States had a representative brand that was at the White House showcasing it, and we didn't actually get that in live because we weren't able to. But this is sort of following in its footsteps here at the Hyatt, and Vice President Pence was there to speak this morning. So let's go over to that, and then we'll bring you back over to the Senate live.
Thank you, Matthew Shea. Thank you for that very kind introduction and your great leadership here. I offer all of you a warm, very warm welcome to our nation's capital. Welcome to Washington, D.C. It's an honor to be here with you today with so many great American success stories, cornerstones of American communities large and small, the members of the National Retail Federation here at the 83rd Annual Retail Advocates Summit. Great to see you all. And I bring greetings this morning from a friend of mine who's a businessman who knows just a little bit about retail, who's been fighting every single day to unleash a new era of American opportunity and prosperity. I bring greetings from the 45th President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump. You know, from the very first day of this administration, President Trump has been fighting to restore jobs and opportunity and prosperity all across this country. This president has signed more laws cutting through federal red tape than any president in American history, and has already saved businesses and families up to $18 billion in red tape costs every year. In fact, the president early in our administration ordered every agency in Washington, D.C. to find 2 regulations to get rid of before issuing any new federal regulations on American businesses large and small. And with the support of our new Secretary of Labor, Secretary Alex Acosta, President Trump is striking the right balance in labor relations, appointing 2 highly qualified experts to the National Labor Relations Board. And as we speak, our administration is rolling back the joint employer rule. And in case you didn't notice, the American people elected a builder to be president of the United States, and President Trump has already started to rebuild America. And we won't stop until we have the best roads, best bridges, best airports, and best harbors, and the best future that we've ever had. Plans are underway at the administration for a historic infrastructure bill, and it's going to support a growing economy all across America. In fact, this week, it is Made in America week for our administration, and the president's been fighting for American job creators and manufacturers and American farmers every single day so that your businesses, American businesses, can sell more American goods than ever before. And I'm here to report to you, since day one of this administration, President Trump has been fighting tirelessly to repeal and replace Obamacare. Every day Obamacare survives is another day the American economy and American families struggle. We all remember the broken promises that made it possible for Obamacare to get passed. You remember them? They said if you like your doctor, you could keep it. Not true. They said if you like your health insurance, you could keep it. Not true. We were told that health insurance costs would go down. That one wasn't true either. Our administration has actually shown that the average premium on the individual market has more than doubled since Obamacare went into effect less than 4 years ago, and in some states it's more than tripled. When Obamacare passed, we were promised that families would save up to $2,500 in premiums every year, but the average Obamacare plan today costs nearly $3,000 more than a plan did in 2013. While premiums are soaring, choices are plummeting. Next year, nearly 40% of America's counties, including 9 entire states, will have only one choice of a health insurance provider, meaning they'll have essentially no choice at all. And even worse, dozens of counties will have no health insurance providers whatsoever on the Obamacare exchange in 2018. Men and women, behind these statistics are real people facing a real crisis. Behind every number is a name, and behind every name is a story. I've heard them as I've traveled across this country on our president's behalf. I've heard firsthand from job creators, just like all of you in this room, and working families about the burden that Obamacare has placed upon them, the burden of higher costs, fewer choices, and worse care for the most vulnerable. Obamacare has failed, and Obamacare must go. Now, President Trump and I are grateful for the efforts of Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and the vast majority of Republicans who've worked so hard in the House and Senate to keep their promise to repeal and replace Obamacare. As the President said just earlier today, most Republicans were loyal, terrific, and worked really hard, and there are no truer words. But last night we learned that the Senate still doesn't have consensus on a bill to repeal and replace Obamacare at the same time. President Trump and I fully support the Majority Leader's decision to move forward with a bill that just repeals Obamacare and gives Congress time, as the President said, to work on a new health care plan that will start with a clean slate. You know, the Senate actually passed the very same bill in 2015 and sent it to President Obama's desk, and they should do it again. But to be clear, the Senate should vote to repeal now and replace later, or return to the legislation carefully crafted in the House and Senate. But either way, inaction is not an option. Congress needs to step up, Congress needs to do their job, and Congress needs to do their job now. As the President said with his...
And guys, speaking of President Trump, actually, we're just getting tape playback in right now of the President speaking about healthcare himself, along with Vice President Pence. So let's go over there, and then we'll come back to this stream.
It will go on, and we'll win. We're going to win on taxes. We're going to win on infrastructure and lots of other things that we're doing. We've won and are winning the war, as you know, on the border. We're very much decimating ISIS. You can see that. You see that better than anybody sees it, the soldiers that are with us today. We've had a lot of victories, but we haven't had a victory on health care. We're disappointed. I am very disappointed because, again, even as a civilian, for 7 years I've been hearing about health care, and I've been hearing about repeal and replace, and Obamacare is a total disaster. Some states had over a 200% increase. A 200% increase in their premiums, and their deductibles are through the roof. It's an absolute disaster. And I think you'll also agree that I've been saying for a long time, let Obamacare fail, and then everybody's going to have to come together and fix it and come up with a new plan, and a plan that's really good for the people with much lower premiums, much lower costs, and much better protection. I've been saying that, Mike, I think you'll agree, for a long time. Let Obamacare fail. It'll be a lot easier. And I think we're probably in that position where we'll just let Obamacare fail. We're not going to own it. I'm not going to own it. I can tell you the Republicans are not going to own it. We'll let Obamacare fail, and then the Democrats are going to come to us, and they're going to say, how do we fix it? How do we fix it? Or how do we come up with a new plan? So we'll see what happens. There's some other things going on right now as we speak. But I am disappointed because for so many years I've been hearing repeal and replace. I'm sitting in the Oval Office right next door, pen in hand, waiting to sign something, and I'll be waiting, and eventually we're going to get something done, and it's going to be very good. But Obamacare is a big failure. and it has to be changed. We have to go to a plan that works. We have to go to a much less expensive plan in terms of premiums, and something will happen, and it'll be very good. May not be as quick as we had hoped, but it's going to happen. Okay? Well, they were not disloyal. They had their own reasons. I was very surprised when the two folks came out last night because we thought they were in fairly good shape, but they did. And, you know, everybody has their own reason. But if you really think about it, you look at it, and we have 52 people. We had no Democrat support, which is really, you know, something that should be said. We should have had Democrats voting. This is a great plan for a lot of people. We had no Democrat support. We have 52 people. We had 4 no's. Now, we might have had another one somewhere in there, but essentially the vote would have been pretty close to, if you look at it, 48-4. That's a pretty impressive vote by any standard. And yet you have a vote of 48-4 or something like that, and you need more. It's pretty tough. So the way I look at it is in 18, we're going to have to get some more people elected. We have to go out and we have to get more people elected that are Republican. And we have to probably pull in those people, those few people that voted against it. I don't know. They're going to have to explain to you why they did, and I'm sure they'll have very fine reasons. But we have to get more Republicans elected because we have to get it done. We got it passed in the House. We would have gotten it very much. Yeah, you can't use his head as a stand, right? We don't want that to happen. You're messing with the wrong guy here. So we want. I think we're going to do very well, actually, in 18. I would be not surprised if something were done long before that. But in any event, because the margin is so small, the majority margin is so small, we're going to have to go out and get more Republicans elected in 18, and I'll be working very hard for that to happen, okay? It would be nice to have Democrat support, but really they're obstructionists. They have no ideas. They have no thought process. All they want to do is obstruct government and obstruct, period. And in this case, think of it. So many good things, we didn't get one vote, and their plan has failed. And by the way, Obamacare isn't failing. It's failed. It's gone. So I think something's going to happen. We'll find out. Stay tuned. Thank you all very much. Thank you. No.
So President Trump there on healthcare pretty much saying we're going to get some more Republicans in, and it's going to happen. We're going to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you know, it didn't happen this time around. Bummer. Really interesting there. I was wondering how we'd take this.
Yeah, and I almost thought he might come out stronger against the Republicans that did vote against it. I mean, he said, you know, I'm sure they've got fine reasons, and we'll have to bring him in here and talk to him. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if we can get any, or like if they can get any more Republicans into office in 2018, as he suggested, and if they do, what that might mean as far as, you know, revisiting this issue.
Right, and he seems determined, like, we're going to keep on going, you know, I'm ready to sign, and definitely seems confident. Looks like this is this might be
Afghanistan, and I'm going to be talking to you about Afghanistan. What you think, your views. These are people on the ground, know it probably better than anybody, feel you know it pretty well, right? And we're going to be getting some ideas because we've been there. It's our longest war. We've been there for many years. We've been there for now close to 17 years. And I want to find out why we've been there for 17 years, how it's going, and what we should do in terms of additional ideas. I've heard plenty of ideas from a lot of people, but I want to hear it from the people on the ground. So this is actually a very important luncheon, and it's a great honor to have you with us. And I look forward to the discussion. We'll wait till the media leaves. I want to thank you folks. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, are you angry at the Republicans who came out against this health care bill?
Disappointed. Very disappointed. I don't think it's dead, no, but it's. I'm certainly disappointed. For 7 years, I've been hearing repeal and replace from Congress, and I've been hearing it loud and strong. And then when we finally get a chance to repeal and replace, they don't take advantage of it. So that's disappointing. So I'm very, I would say I'm disappointed in what took place. It will go on and we'll win. We're going to win on taxes. We're going to win on infrastructure and lots of other things that we're doing. We've won and are winning the war, as you know, on the border. We're very much decimating ISIS. You can see that. You see that better than anybody sees it, the soldiers that are with us today. We've had a lot of victories, but we haven't had a victory on health care. We're disappointed. I am very disappointed because, again, even as a civilian, for 7 years I've been hearing about health care. And I've been hearing about repeal and replace. And Obamacare is a total disaster. Some states had over a 200% increase, a 200% increase in their premiums. And their deductibles are through the roof. It's an absolute disaster. And I think you'll also agree that I've been saying for a long time, let Obamacare fail, and then everybody's going to have to come together and fix it and come up with a new plan, and a plan that's really good for the people with much lower premiums, much lower costs, and much better protection. I've been saying that, Mike, I think you'll agree, for a long time. Let Obamacare fail. It'll be a lot easier. And I think we're probably in that position where we'll just let Obamacare fail. We're not going to own it. I'm not going to own it. I can tell you the Republicans are not going to own it. We'll let Obamacare fail, and then the Democrats are going to come to us and they're going to say, how do we fix it? How do we fix it? Or how do we come up with a new plan? So we'll see what happens. There's some other things going on right now as we speak. But I am disappointed because for so many years I've been hearing repeal and replace. I'm sitting in the Oval Office right next door, pen in hand, waiting to sign something, and I'll be waiting, and eventually we're going to get something done, and it's going to be very good. But Obamacare is a big failure, and it has to be changed. We have to go to a plan that works. We have to go to a much less expensive plan in terms of premiums, and something will happen, and it'll be very good. May not be as quick as we had hoped, but it's going to happen. Okay?
Were these Republicans disloyal? When you said disloyal, were these Republicans who came out against it disloyal?
Well, they were not disloyal. They had their own reasons. I was very surprised when the two folks came out last night because we thought they were in fairly good shape, but they did. And, you know, everybody has their own reason. But if you really think about it, you look at it, and we have 52 people. We had no Democrat support, which is really, you know, something that should be said. We should have had Democrats voting. This is a great plan for a lot of people. We had no Democrat support. We have 52 people. We had 4 no's. Now, we might have had another one somewhere in there, but essentially the vote would have been pretty close to, if you look at it, 48-4. That's a pretty impressive vote by any standard. And yet you have a vote of 48-4 or something like that, and you need more. It's pretty tough. So the way I look at it is, in 18, we're going to have to get some more people elected. We have to go out and we have to get more people elected that are Republican. And we have to probably pull in those people, those few people that voted against it. I don't know. They're going to have to explain to you why they did, and I'm sure they'll have very fine reasons. But we have to get more Republicans elected because we have to get it done. We got it passed in the House. We would have gotten it very much. Yeah, you can't use his head as a stand, right? We don't want that to happen. You're messing with the wrong guy here. So we want. I think we're going to do very well, actually, in 18. I would be not surprised if something were done long before that. But in any event, because the margin is so small, the majority margin is so small, we're going to have to go out and get more Republicans elected in 18, and I'll be working very hard for that to happen, okay? And it would be nice to have Democrat support, but really they're obstructionists. They have no ideas. They have no thought process. All they want to do is obstruct government and obstruct, period. And in this case, think of it. So many good things, we didn't get one vote, and their plan has failed. And by the way, Obamacare isn't failing. It's failed. It's gone. So I think something's going to happen. We'll find out. Stay tuned. Thank you all very much.
So that was just a replay, guys, of what we heard earlier. But at the top of that, you could hear President Trump saying that he was disappointed in the 4 Republicans who did not vote. And Cam, you were just kind of eyeing some polls.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly for sure. I mean, you know, well, there's a lot of problems with polling, but the poll that I just saw, and I actually just closed out of it, but it basically it said, you know, because President Trump in response to to a reporter said, "I've been saying for a while now, let Obamacare fail,
It's dying out on its
and
own.
when that happens, like us Republicans are not gonna that's not our fault. We're not gonna take the blame for that. Democrats come to us and say like, how do we fix this?"
Mm-hmm.
And the poll I just saw was option A was President Obama and the Democrats in Congress who passed the law are responsible for problems with it moving forward.
Mhm.
And option B was President Trump and the Republicans currently in control of government are responsible for any problems with Obamacare going forward. And the poll results were 60-30 so 60% of people said that it was the Republicans' fault
Mhm.
with any problems with Obamacare going forward, and only 30%
Mhm.
said that it was the Democrats' fault who actually passed the law, which I thought was really interesting. I mean, I guess you can make the argument that because Republicans are currently in charge of the government, they should be able to adapt now to any problems, so then kind of adjust it so that it works better.
Right.
Obviously, and the flip side is, Democrats passed the law. It's their law. So if it sucks, they passed it. They put it in there. I kind of see both sides. I mean, the other kind of interesting thing about it is the wording of the poll question is any problems with it moving forward. So you can say that even if it sucked to this point, obviously depending on how you feel about that, but even if it's had problems to this point, those have been the Democrats' fault. But going forward, it's all Republicans' fault, which is pretty reasonable. I mean, now the Republicans are the ones in office; they're the ones who have the power to change something.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'd be interested to see, a similar poll with who's responsible for any Obamacare shortcomings to this point,
right?
Which I have a feeling would be more
to see if it goes in the same
flip the other
line.
side. I have a feeling that people would more blame the Democrats for any shortcomings to this point if you find that they've had shortcomings at all. So
yeah, I do kind of find that poll surprising too, the one that you just read off. But that's what we now have this kind of on loop, guys, still playing out. But President Trump there talking about what he feels going forward and that he's going to be ready and he wants to put some more Republicans in Congress and iron this out in 2018. He's going to keep pushing forward, but saying definitively, as he always does, that Obamacare is done. It's failed. It's dead. So that's his reaction there. And there's Vice President Pence sitting right beside him, guys. He was also earlier this morning at the National Retail Federation Summit, speaking at the Hyatt Regency here in Washington. So we're going to go back to that stream for you guys to listen in on that speech before we go over back to here. There's the halls of the Senate. We're going to wait for some senators to come out in this stakeout and speak to press. That should happen. We don't know when, but these cameras are always set up there. We're ready for it. So we'll keep an eye on that for you guys to bring that to you guys live. So for now, back to Vice President Pence here at the summit that he was speaking at earlier this morning.
Get it done. But I'm here today on the President's behalf to say thank you. Thanks to the National Retail Federation and all the members for what you do for America every single day. It's amazing to think for 106 years, the National Retail Federation has given a voice to the corner stores, the mom and pop shops, the grocers, the department stores, internet retailers, and all the other retailers that are literally the backbone of every American community. And the businesses represented in this room make a remarkable difference in the life of our nation and the lives of the American people every day. As President Trump said when he met with retailers earlier this year, you're one of the great job producers in America, and it's true. Retailers are one of the largest employers in America today. In fact, a stunning 1 in 4 American jobs depend on the retail industry. The National Retail Federation slogan really sums it up best. Retail means jobs, and the best days for American retailers are up ahead. I promise you that. Now, I'd like to take a moment to recognize all the retail champions who are with us here today, especially Danny Reynolds from Stevenson's in Elkhart, Indiana. Congratulations to the 5 finalists, one of whom will be the champion of the year announced later today. Let's give all the champions a round of applause. It's important to celebrate the difference that each one of you make. Businesses large and small all across this country. Beyond the numbers, beyond the jobs, is something I would say is even more important. And that is, growing up in a small town in southern Indiana, I know that retailers like all of you gathered here are simply a fixture in the lives of literally every American family. We walk through your doors to get Christmas and birthday presents for our loved ones. We walk down your aisles and we browse those aisles to buy clothes and groceries and everyday necessities. We walk by your windows every single day. We pop in even if we didn't plan on it. It doesn't matter what we need. American retailers have it. In fact, one of the last things I did before I was sworn in as Vice President of the United States was stop by a retailer. It was during the transition here in our nation's capital. Mrs. Pence had sent me a text and told me to pick up some ice cream. It's the first time I'd done that with a large Secret Service detail, but I did my job. But let me also say one more thing. Not only do you provide those great goods and great services to people all across this country, but on behalf of the President, I want to acknowledge the fact that America's retailers are really model corporate citizens. The truth is, you support every worthy cause in every community, large and small. You enrich not only our people, but our very way of life. I mean, you can't hardly go to a Little League baseball game. You can't hardly go to a local charity function without seeing your banners hanging, without hearing about your sponsorship on the brochure. You know that your President and I are truly grateful for everything that you do for the communities that you serve. Why don't you give yourselves a round of applause for the difference that you make in the lives of every American community. And I want to assure you, our President knows as retail goes, so goes America. The President told retailers earlier this year that our administration is, quote, in his words, very focused on the issues that will encourage economic growth, the growth that you'll need to continue to grow and succeed. It's remarkable to think about everything the President's accomplished so far. It's been only 6 months. And President Trump is going to keep working every single day to pass our agenda of less regulation, better infrastructure, more American energy, and affordable, high-quality health care. And rest assured, one more item I want to mention to you. This President is going to work with this Congress this year, and we're going to pass the largest tax cut since the days of Ronald Reagan. The truth is, America's tax code is one of the biggest barriers to success for working families and job creators like all of you. I love that old line that says that the Internal Revenue Code is twice as long as the Bible, with none of the good news. We're going to change all that. We're going to cut taxes across the board for working families, small businesses, and family farms. We're going to simplify the tax code by cutting 7 brackets down to 3. We'll eliminate the alternative minimum tax. We'll make the code flatter and fairer and simpler for everyone. And particularly important to retailers around America, particularly small town family retailers, under President Donald Trump, we're going to repeal death taxes once and for all. Death will no longer be a taxable event. And when it comes to your businesses, our tax plan is going to put American companies, including our retailers, back on a path to jobs and growth and better competitiveness. Our corporate tax rate, it's remarkable to think, is one of the highest in the developed world. Our outdated system of worldwide taxation literally penalizes companies for being headquartered in America, but not for long. President Trump's plan is to slash the business tax rate to 15%. We'll enact a territorial tax that's in line with the rest of the world. We're going to cut taxes on the trillions of dollars that are locked away overseas so that American companies can invest those dollars in American workers, American jobs, and America's future. President Trump's tax cut plan will empower your companies to compete on a level playing field with businesses anywhere in the world. And as we all know, when the field is level, American businesses always win. The truth is, President Trump's agenda is going to make the strongest economy in the world stronger still. And I believe that every business that's represented here will benefit from the historic accomplishments that lie ahead. But as I leave, I want to challenge each one of you, leaders in this country, leaders in the communities that you represent, to stand with this president as he advocates an agenda built on American principles that will generate a boundless American future. I encourage you during this time in our nation's capital to let your voice be heard as you reach out to our elected representatives. Tell them you're counting on them, supporting the president's agenda. Less regulation, lower taxes, better infrastructure. And while you're at it, tell them the time is now to repeal and replace Obamacare. The truth is, President Trump is fighting every single day for all of you and all the people that you serve in all of your various outlets. He knows that your success is America's success, and every community, large and small, is a testament to this fact. We have an opportunity. The President and I believe we have a responsibility to usher in a new era of jobs, of growth, of opportunity, and prosperity, built on American principles, timeless American principles of growth. And we have a duty to bring about the best and brightest future for all who are blessed to call our nation home. And this we know we will do because we have faith. Faith in the boundless capacity of the American people to revive this nation's economy and grow again. I have faith in this president's vision for America and his determination to drive forward an agenda for this country that will renew and revive the prosperity of our land. And I have faith that he who has ever had his hand on this nation from its very beginning will yet bless America. And so I say with confidence, together with all of you and with Donald Trump in the White House, we will make America safe again. We will make America prosperous again. And to borrow a phrase, we will make America great again. Thank you very much. God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America. I'm going to jump down and say hi. Love it.
All right, guys, we'll come back in here to our newsroom. You're watching Fox 5 Live on Fox 5 Local News, our digital show for you guys during the middle of the day. Molly Nevola here with intern Cam. He's looking up some stuff for me. Anything popping in the news?
Not really. Response to Trump's
his statement.
Press conference, yes. Statement that we just went to, but nothing really groundbreaking. People who don't like Trump are bashing him. People who like him are not. That's just kind of how it is.
Exactly. Well, we still have our shot up of the Senate stakeout here, the hallways as they wait for people to come out. There it is. Still have not seen anyone there yet, so we'll have that camera hanging out live just so we can watch and wait for that. Give you a live look quickly of the U.S. Capitol, which is where that was. There it is on today's sunny Tuesday. Going into the end of July. But yeah, guys, we're just going to watch and wait for more sources for you guys and see what else is happening for the news. And what else is going on. Yeah. I don't have much else right now in the pipeline. So we'll throw it back to the Senate stakeout for now. We'll keep an eye on that, and then we'll be back with you guys in a little bit. Guys, while we wait for some of the senators to come out and engage in this stakeout here and talk to the press, this is live footage right here. We just don't know when it's going to happen. I'm going to replay for you guys some of the speeches on the Senate floor from this morning, including from Senator Chuck Schumer. Senator Tim Kaine was there as well, and a few others that we were able to roll on so that you can kind of stay abreast with this topic and what happened there. As we know, the GOP healthcare bill has collapsed. President Trump had some words on that just earlier. We brought that to you guys as well. And now they move forward and try to continue to act to repeal and replace this bill. So I'm going to play this out double screen for you guys, and while we wait for more to happen on the Hill.
The regular order to arrive at a result acceptable to people all along the political spectrum, as Leader McConnell once said. I dare say it would create a much better result for the American people as well. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the floor.
Under the previous order, the leadership time is reserved. Morning business is closed. Under the previous order, the Senate will proceed to executive session to resume consideration of the Shanahan nomination, which the clerk will report.
Nomination, Department of Defense, Patrick M. Shanahan of Washington to be Deputy Secretary.
Mr. President.
The senator from New Hampshire.
Mr. President, the majority leader says that he will move forward this week with a vote on a straight repeal of the Affordable Care Act in its entirety. I don't believe that a majority of senators are willing to support a reckless leap in the dark that vote would mean. It's a vote that would end protections for people with pre-existing conditions. It would take health coverage away from tens of millions of Americans, tens of thousands in New Hampshire. It would terminate the Medicaid expansion that has been critical to fighting the opioid epidemic in my state and so many states across the country. And according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, a straight repeal of the Affordable Care Act would result in more than 32 million people losing their insurance coverage by 2026. Premiums would roughly double in the individual marketplaces. I urge my Republican friends not to go forward with this misguided approach. The idea that they can repeal the health care bill now and give us a new bill in 2 years or whatever period of time is in the bill just doesn't pass the smell test. If we haven't seen an alternative to the Affordable Care Act in the last 7 years, there's no reason to believe that our Republican colleagues are going to be able to produce a bill in 2 years when there is chaos in the marketplaces. There is a better way forward for the Senate and for our country. During the 4th of July recess, Majority Leader McConnell said that if he can't secure the votes to repeal the Affordable Care Act, he's prepared to work in a bipartisan way with Democrats on legislation to repair and strengthen the law. Now, I believe that bipartisanship is the best way to get something done. That's what I tried to do when I was governor of New Hampshire. I worked closely with our Republican legislature, and we got things done. It should not be a last resort to what we're doing. It should be the first resort. It should be what we do to build a foundation for policy in this country. And I'm hopeful that following the floor consideration of whatever the majority leader decides to do on health care, and hopefully it's going to get defeated, that we will move forward with the majority leader's fallback plan, which I believe should be the starting position. We need to start fresh with regular order to craft bipartisan legislation that builds on the strengths of the Affordable Care Act, that builds on what's working, and that fixes what is not working. As we've been hearing at town halls and in countless messages from our constituents, this is exactly what the American people want us to do. There is remarkable consensus in this country that the Republican leader's bill is the wrong approach. An ABC Washington Post poll on Sunday found that by more than 2-to-1 margin, Americans prefer the Affordable Care Act to the Republican leader's bill. Their bill is strongly opposed by hospital associations, by healthcare providers, by the health insurance industry, by nearly every patient advocacy group, including the American Cancer Society and the American Heart Association, and there is no reason to think that just repealing the Affordable Care Act is going to make that any better. On Saturday, the New Hampshire Hospital Association, the New Hampshire Medical Society, our physicians, the New Hampshire AARP, joined together in opposition to the bill. They noted that more than 118,000 Granite Staters, nearly 1 in 10 people in New Hampshire, would lose health coverage under the Republican bill. And that number is even greater if we just repeal the Affordable Care Act. Their joint statement urges senators to start over, to create a new version of legislation that protects coverage for those who have it and provides coverage for those who need it. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the joint statement by these groups be included in the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. I strongly agree with these New Hampshire groups. After spending 6 months trying to pass a deeply unpopular, deeply flawed bill to repeal the law, shouldn't we welcome a bipartisan effort to improve the law? I believe the answer to that is yes, and that the place to begin is by taking urgent action on a matter where most of us agree, and that is providing certainty to health insurance markets in order to hold down premium increases. In their 2018 rate request filings, insurers say that large increases are necessary because of the uncertainty surrounding the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, and because the Trump administration refuses to commit to making cost-sharing reduction payments. Those payments that go to insurance companies so they can help their consumers with the cost of health insurance and make sure that more people can get health insurance. Well, we now have an opportunity to end this uncertainty by putting the repeal effort behind us and passing a simple bill to authorize regular appropriations for the cost-sharing reduction payments. The current instability in the ACA marketplaces is a manufactured crisis, and Congress can put a stop to it very quickly. That's why I've introduced the Marketplace Certainty Act, which is a bill to permanently appropriate funds to expand the funds for and to expand the cost-sharing reduction payments. So it does two things. It guarantees that these payments are coming and it's going to cover more people to get help. I'm pleased to be joined by 26 senators who've already co-sponsored this bill. We can end this artificial crisis. We can immediately restore certainty and stability to the health insurance markets. And in turn, we could get the time that we need in order to come together in a bipartisan way to improve this law, to build on what's working, to fix what's not. We have a number of these common sense measures, and this is one that has been embraced not just by Democrats, but by key Republican leaders. Chairman Lamar Alexander, House Ways and Means Chairman Kevin Brady, they've urged that these payments be continued. As Chairman Brady put it, the payments are needed, quote, unquote, quote, to stabilize the health insurance market and help lower premiums for Americans. He added, and I quote, insurers have made clear the lack of certainty is causing 2018 proposed premiums to rise significantly. Now, we've heard from our constituents at home. We've heard from doctors, nurses, hospitals, particularly rural hospitals, nursing homes, patient advocates, insurers, those constituents who are in the letter that I asked to be, the statement that I asked to be included in the record. They are pleading with us to set aside our partisan differences and work together to repair the Affordable Care Act. And again, we know what we can do. It's not just the Marketplace Certainty Act. There are other bills that have been introduced that can fix the uncertainty in the market and allow us to address other issues with the law. Bipartisanship should be the Senate's first resort, not the last resort. An excellent place to start is by coming together right now to permanently appropriate funds for the cost-sharing reduction payments that keep health coverage affordable, and to look at some of the other common sense measures that are going to be talked about by my colleagues, like Senator Klobuchar, who are going to be coming to the floor. She has legislation that would help us deal with the high cost of prescription drugs, which is one of the things that's driving the increasing cost of health care. We need to pass these common sense measures, and we need to do it now. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
The Senator from Minnesota.
Mr. President, I want to thank Senator Shaheen for her leadership. I am proud to be one of the co-sponsors of her bill and her common sense approach here, which I believe is the one that will win the day in the end, which is to work together on changes to the Affordable Care Act that will help the American people. I join my colleagues on the floor in sharing the concerns that I've heard from so many people in my state and across the country about the bill that have been introduced by our colleague. But also the other issue that I've heard from them is their desire to have us work together to bring down the costs of health care and to make fixes to the Affordable Care Act. Healthcare leaders in my state had come out strongly against the bill released last week because it would be devastating to the people of our state, especially in our rural areas with our rural hospitals, especially for people, so many of our seniors who rely on Medicaid funding for nursing homes and assisted living. Last night we heard that we will not be proceeding to that bill, and instead the majority leader wants to bring up repeal of big parts of the Affordable Care Act without a replacement. Well, I just want to remind my colleagues that the Congressional Budget Office has already looked at this repeal without a replacement, and it's just as bad. Instead of 22 million people losing their insurance by 2026, the CBO estimated that 32 million would lose insurance under the repeal approach, and premiums would double. So this repeal effort doesn't help the health of Minnesotans who, according to the Minnesota Medical Association, would be harmed by what they call draconian Medicaid cuts. It doesn't help our children's hospitals. I met with several last week, and they were very concerned that Medicaid cuts would hurt their ability to provide health care to our kids, something, by the way, I heard repeatedly on 4th of July in the parades when people would come up just out of the blue, out of the sides of the street, mixed in with the hot dogs and the American flags would be families, predominantly families with kids with disabilities. And they would bring children over to me to meet and would say how important this Medicaid funding is for their entire family. And I remember once when a mom brought over her child with Down syndrome, all the people on the parade route in that block cheered for that family. And that's because we know we're all in this together. We know that what happens to one family could next year happen to another family. You can have a child with disabilities. You can suddenly have a disease that could be debilitating to your family's finances. And that basically we never know what's going to happen to the health of ourselves or our family members, and that's why we have health insurance, and we must make sure that it's affordable. In addition to that, we've had our CEOs of our healthcare system stand up and say that these approaches would lead to major job losses in our state. And as I mentioned before, for seniors, AARP has said that nearly half of all adults in my state who receive tax credits under the Affordable Care Act are 50 to 64-year-olds, and these subsidies would be eliminated under the repeal bill. This could make health care unaffordable, especially for the more than 350,000 people in my state aged 50 to 64 who have a pre-existing condition. Now, it doesn't have to be this way, as Senator Shaheen has so articulately pointed out. I know that several of my Republican colleagues have said that they can't support legislation that would take away insurance for tens of millions of Americans, and I agree. Instead of making these kinds of draconian cuts and moving backwards, I think we have to move forwards to actually help make health care in America better and more affordable. Because we can and we should make changes to the Affordable Care Act. The day it passed, I said this is a beginning and not an end. You simply cannot have a major piece of legislation like that and go for years without any significant changes. That's just not how it has worked with major legislation in the past. But every time we have tried to make changes, we have heard back that we have to repeal it. Well, maybe the result of all of this chaos in the last month has been that people have finally come to realize what the American people want, as Senator Shaheen has pointed out, as well as what is the best policy, and that is to make changes. I support Senator Shaheen's Marketplace Certainty Act because it would stabilize the individual market and protect and expand a vital program that reduces out-of-pocket health care costs for consumers. I also support Senator Kaine, who is here with us today, Senator Kaine of Virginia, and Senator Carper's bill, the Individual Health Insurance Marketplace Improvement Act, to reestablish a federal reinsurance program. And by the way, this idea of reinsurance is something that our Republican legislature in Minnesota just passed on a state basis and are supportive of. So I see this as not just some pie-in-the-sky ideas. I see these ideas as things that we can work on across the aisle. And I just want to end by talking about some of my ideas, many of which have bipartisan support. So again, I throw them in a package of things that we could be working on. A bill that would harness the negotiating power of 41 million seniors on Medicare to bring drug prices down. Right now, by law, Medicare is banned from negotiating prices with all of those seniors. Think of the better bargain that those seniors could get if their marketing power was unleashed. Senator McCain, the colleague of the presiding officer, and I have a bill to allow Americans to bring in safe, less expensive drugs from Canada, which is, by the way, very similar to the American market. As I've often noted, we can see Canada from our porch in Minnesota. So we see right across the border the kind of prices that they are able to get, and we think we should. Senator McCain and I and several Republicans voted for a similar measure, should be allowed to bring in less expensive drugs from Canada and perhaps other countries. You could also tie it to a trigger if there's no competition or prices have ballooned like they have for 4 of the top 10 drugs selling drugs in this country. Senator Lee and I have a bill that would allow importation of safe drugs from other countries when there isn't healthy competition. Senator Grassley and I have a bill to stop something called pay for delay, where big pharmaceutical companies are paying off generics to keep their products off the market. $3 billion in savings for the U.S. government by just passing that, and I would challenge my colleagues to vote against something as simple as that. Last, the CREATES Act. Senator Grassley, Leahy, Feinstein, Lee, and I have that bill, and that makes sure that we get the samples so we can get generics off on the market and create more competition and bring prices down. So I'll end with this. This debate is about the patients of a nurse practitioner who provides psychiatric care in my state. She wrote to me to say, please, please do all you can to prevent these people from losing the health insurance coverage for medical and mental health care that is so vital to their lives. In Minnesota, 1/3, 32% of the funding for our state mental health comes from Medicaid. And across the country, Medicaid expansion has helped 1.3 million people receive treatment for mental health and substance abuse issues. This debate is about the mom in Minnesota with private insurance who has colon cancer. She's working full-time, raising 2 school-age boys and going to chemo every single week. She says she fears she won't be able to afford the care she needs to stay alive. This debate is about the rural constituents, which I noted had come up to me in parades, 4th of July, nearly every other block, telling me their stories of how they're concerned for their kids with disabilities, how they're concerned about their rural hospitals. We have things that we can do to make this better. And now is the time where we must get them done. So let's come up, and we have bipartisan support for these changes to the Affordable Care Act. Let's work together on them across the aisle. And let's remember that this is about one team, one country, and we can get this done. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
President.
The senator from Virginia.
Mr. President, thank you. I also take the floor to talk about health care. I want to appreciate my colleagues who are here to earnestly plead with all of our colleagues to be about a process where Democrats and Republicans, the committee process that we have in the Senate, does the work we're supposed to, listening to the American public and improving our health care system. Let me tell you about my first meeting of the day. It was an amazing one. I had a mom, Rebecca, and a 5-year-old daughter, Charlie, in my office. They had asked for the opportunity to meet with me to come talk about health care. Here's their story. Charlie is just about 5. She starts kindergarten in the Charlottesville Public Schools in September. She was born at 26 weeks, about 14 weeks early. She was 1 pound, 11 ounces at birth. Went through the NICU, had great care. When she was released to go home, the doctors thought she would be fine, but within a couple of months, it was pretty clear that she had some significant challenges. She has a cerebral palsy diagnosis. She gets 80% of her food through a feeding tube. This family has many, many needs. Now, Charlie, from a cognitive standpoint, is very, very sharp, excited about starting school, but she has significant needs. And the mother, Rebecca, said Charlie is like the case study for why a repeal of the ACA would be a disaster. Charlie has a pre-existing condition because of the CP and her challenges. Charlie has already hit all of the lifetime caps that would have rendered her unable to get insurance pre-ACA. Charlie in the hospital, because of her dramatically low birth weight, was the recipient of Medicaid funds that would be cut under the current bill. Charlie is currently the recipient of a Medicaid waiver to help her afford supplies for her feeding tube. And Charlie, when she starts kindergarten in the Charlottesville Public Schools, will be given an individualized education plan under the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, and some of those expenses are being compensated by Medicaid. So pre-existing condition, lifetime caps, Medicaid cuts, they all affect this dynamic young 5-year-old who is as entitled as any of us to try to be all she can be. If we persist on the path we're on now of the bill that is being proposed, we would hurt families like these, and we don't need to do that. Instead, we can help them. Before passage of the Affordable Care Act, we know Americans with pre-existing conditions like Charlie faced unfair barriers to accessing health coverage since 2010, and there are challenges we need to fix, but let's celebrate a few things. The rate of uninsured Americans has declined to a historic low. More than 20 million people have access and have health care coverage, many for the first time in their lives. Another statistic that's interesting, the number of bankruptcies in our nation has been cut in half because medical costs drove bankruptcies pre-ACA. The ACA has brought the bankruptcy rate down. We've got to move forward to make health care stronger, not destroy it. The Republican bill that is being discussed right now, because of its reductions of coverage, slashing Medicaid, increases to premiums for seniors, would make the matter worse. The proposed amendment by the senator from Texas and Utah has led insurance companies to come out and say this will create a 2-tier system that will punish those with pre-existing condition. And the latest plan discussed this morning by the majority leader that would just be a straight repeal of the Affordable Care Act with a promise that we'd fix it in a couple of years. That's been scored by the CBO, and the CBO says that would cost 32 million Americans to lose their coverage, dramatically increase premiums. But we do need to find improvements, and we should be working on that together. There have been some actions taken by this administration that have compounded challenges. In January, the President signed an executive order directing relevant agencies not to enforce key elements of the Affordable Care Act. They terminated components of outreach and enrollment spending. The administration has threatened to end cost-sharing reduction payments. And these actions and additional inactions have created such uncertainty in the individual marketplace that rates have been unstable, and in some areas, companies are not writing individual policies. The amendment that I discussed earlier from the senators from Texas and Utah would make these problems even worse. But there's a better way. There is a way forward. And I'm here to just briefly reference a bill that Senator Carper and I have put on the table that we think will do a good job and should have strong bipartisan support, the Individual Health Insurance Marketplace Improvement Act. One of the ways to address uncertainty in the individual market is to establish a permanent reinsurance program that will stabilize premiums, that will give insurance companies some stability so that they can stay in markets, but will also enable those companies to write premiums at an average level, not having to take into account the high-cost claims. We think it could reduce premiums dramatically all over the country. Now, the idea of reinsurance shouldn't be controversial. We use it in other programs, flood insurance, crop insurance, Medicare Part D, a key part of Medicare that was achieved under the Bush administration includes a reinsurance provision. The Affordable Care Act had reinsurance in its first 3 years that expired. That reinsurance helped maintain stable premiums. So this is an idea that is not a democratic idea. It's an idea that's tested. We've introduced the bill, Senator Carper and I, the senators on the Finance Committee, I'm on the Health Committee, and we're just waiting for the opportunity to be able to present it and get a hearing for it. We ought to be able to work together on reinsurance, on cost-sharing guarantees that Senator Shaheen has proposed, on a variety of other ideas. Senators Cassidy and Collins have a bill in that uses auto-enrollment, which is an interesting concept that we should be tackling. But as I conclude, Mr. President, let me just tell you how naive I am. I'm just going to conclude and tell you how naive I am. I was a mayor and governor before I got here to the Senate. And when you're a mayor and governor, what you know is education and health care. We've got a governor here and a governor here. You know education and a governor here. We've got 4 governors, former governors sitting on the floor. What you know is education, which is your biggest line item, and your second biggest line item with Medicaid is health care. I tried to get on the committee when I got to the Senate, and I was not put on the committee. I was very disappointed. For 4 years, I've tried to get on the Health Committee. I got on January 3rd. I was so excited. Finally, I'm working on something I know about. I got a group of 13 Democratic senators within 48 hours of getting on that committee. January 5th, I wrote a letter to my committee chair, Senator Alexander, a great committee chair, to the finance chair, Senator Hatch, to the majority leader, Senator McConnell. If you want to fix health care, we're here to sit down with you right now and fix it. And I was naive enough to think that because I was on the Help Committee, I might be included in a discussion about health care. We've had hearings in our committee, many hearings, on nominees, on pensions, on higher ed, on the FDA, but there's been one taboo topic on the Help Committee since I got on it in January. We're not allowed to have a hearing about health care. We haven't had a hearing about the House bill. We haven't had a hearing about Senate proposals. We're being told that we're not going to have a hearing. We're just going to rush whatever we do to the floor, either on a House proposal, a Senate proposal, or a Senate repeal. We're going to completely skip the committee. Now, Mr. President, you know a little bit about this committee. We have a doctor on the committee, Senator Cassidy from Louisiana. Our chair of the committee, Senator Alexander, he was a governor. He had a Medicaid program. He was the president of the University of Tennessee. He had a hospital. He had a medical school. He had physician practice groups. There are people on the Help Committee who know something about health care. There are people on the Finance Committee that covers Medicaid and Medicare that know something about health care. But we've not been allowed to have a hearing about this. When you have a hearing, you bring people up to the witness table. Patients like Charlie, who was in my office this morning, doctors, hospitals. You ask them what works, what doesn't work, what can be fixed. We haven't had the opportunity to hear from folks. So why wouldn't we do exactly what Senator McCain said yesterday? Senator McCain said, we've gone about this the wrong way. We should be the United States Senate. We should take advantage of the Senate procedures and the expertise on the Senate committees, including staff expertise. And we should assign these various bills to the relevant committees and have hearings and then come forward with a proposal that will actually improve health care for this country. I am completely confident that if we let the committees do the work that they are supposed to do, we will find improvements that can get bipartisan support and that will help Virginians and help Americans. And that just doesn't seem too much to ask. And I hope my colleagues will consider that, and I hope we will be engaged in those discussions soon. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Delaware.
I want to preface my remarks today by asking that you convey to your wingman, Senator John McCain, our colleague, our warmest best wishes and our hope that he is on his way to a speedy recovery and will be back here because we need him and we need his wisdom. I want to thank Tim Kaine for the leadership that he and Senator Shaheen are showing and an effort to try to help us stabilize the marketplaces. I believe in, we were with Senator Hassan over the weekend, we talked a lot about this, but what do we do now? I think this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity here. And I realize there's a fair amount of confusion as to which path to take or which way to go. And I just hope that we don't waste this opportunity. And I sent a message to the new chairman of the National Governors Association, to the new vice chairman of the National Governors Association, Brian Sandoval from Nevada, the new chair. He's the the governor from Nevada, previously the vice chair, and Steve Bullock from Montana is the new vice chair. One's a Republican, the other's a Democrat. But I sent them a message this morning saying that it'd really be good to hear from the governors. And they've been working on a bipartisan letter. They've been working on it for a while. And this is really the time that it can make a real positive impact. We have 3 people literally sitting here, 4 of us literally lined up, who used to be part of the National Governors Association. I loved it, and I'm sure that Senator Shaheen, Senator Keene, and Senator Hassan did as well. But here's what I suggested that the governors may want to consider in their message. Number 1, urge us to hit the pause button. Hit the pause button. Let's just stop in place for a moment and pivot soon, like not in September, not in August, but like now, like this week, pivot to stabilizing the exchanges. Number 3, return to regular order. Senator Kaine has already mentioned this. When I talked with Senator McCain last week, a couple of times briefly, we both talked about the need for regular order. People have good ideas on health care, introduce them. Committees of jurisdiction, hold hearings. Witnesses, including governors, come before the committees of jurisdiction, a couple of committees in the House, a couple of committees in the Senate, and let's hear from the experts, and let's certainly hear from the governors who have to run these Medicaid programs and have a lot of expertise in this area to offer us. And then I would say after the August recess, if we can actually do something real in stabilizing the exchanges, what a confidence builder that would be among us, and I think around the country. It would be just a great confidence builder. The other thing I would mention that when we come back after the August recess, don't just kind of muck around and wonder what we're going to do. We should pull together in a bipartisan way, something that we talked a lot about doing, we don't often do it, but to really do maybe a couple things. Say, let's figure out what we need to fix in the Affordable Care Act. Republicans believe the Democrats feel it's perfect and nothing should be changed. Well, I don't feel that way. My guess is that most of our Democrats don't either. Anything that I've ever worked, every bill I've ever worked on was not perfect. It can always be done better. And the same is true with big programs like Medicare, Social.
All right, guys, we're coming back into the newsroom here for a second because we're going to switch up our sources. Turns out the stakeout, we're losing that source, and it looks like that wasn't kind of coming in for a while. So we're going to change it up and take you totally across over to Los Angeles, where apparently there is a reckless driver pursuit going on. We get these in from time to time. Check this out. Let's listen in.
Situation. It's 88th Street. Yeah, and they're guiding these guys around, and they're telling this guy's got to just move off to the right or back off. He's being directed by officers to leave the area here. Obviously, we don't know if they're tinted. Yeah, we couldn't tell if there's any more. That's right. Okay, he's opening up the door, and it looks like he is Yeah, he collided. I mean, look at that pole that he took out there. But that's a heavy-duty pickup truck, that Nissan pickup truck. Again, ending in a crash here right off the 110 freeway at Figueroa and 88th. There's a guy up on the rooftop there now, too, trying to capture all this with his phone. You see that across the street in the bottom left corner of the screen here. Hands are up. He's doing exactly what he's told. I was concerned about those wires being down and the ground being charged, the automobile being charged. That's always a danger. Okay, not what he's supposed to be doing right now. His hands should be up at this time. He should have his back to the officers. Now he's acting just casually, and he is going to lay out. But that was not a good move on his. And now there's another individual who's joined the one young man up on the rooftop here, capturing all of this on their cell phones. LAPD, guns drawn. We believe it's just the driver inside. This pursuit, again, started at 10:30 this morning. It started as a reckless driving call. At least that's what the 77th Division, that's what they're saying. And they followed him for a little bit. They lit him up. He didn't pull over, and the pursuit was on. And it stayed in the South L.A. neighborhood throughout its duration. But, again, he collided with a couple of vehicles. If he injured anybody, we don't know that at this time. Now they're going to approach the car, the pickup truck here, and they're going to clear it, being that those windows are tinted. They're going to make sure nobody else is inside. Once that cab has been cleared, we'll see the four fingers, code 4. We'll see an officer come upon the suspect and cuff that individual. And he's going to be written up for a number of violations, evading officers, reckless driving, all those street lights and street signs that he ran through. And now here comes the officers, and they will a gaggle of them. They are going to they're going to cuff him and take him into custody. So code 4 on the vehicle. It's all clear. Just the driver. Again, a couple of crashes. We're going to try to get information on how severe they were, but you could see all the front end damage prior to him hitting this power pole and taking it out. Figueroa Street is completely blocked. That's big news right now. Let's watch just a little bit now as they handcuff the suspect. You cannot make your way north or south on Figueroa Street. Figueroa is one of the main streets that parallels the 110 Harbor Freeway on the west side of the 110. And again, this termination of this pursuit, this pickup truck happened on the corner of Figueroa and 88. That's where he took out the power pole. Looks like part of a gate of an apartment complex as well. He didn't look badly injured, at least from our vantage point. He was rather nonchalant when he walked out of the vehicle, and for a time he wasn't doing exactly what he was being told by the officers. Never should a suspect exit a vehicle like that with his hands down and facing the officers. But now we have to find out if any innocent individuals were injured. And we'll bring a complete update on all that on the news at noon.
All right, guys, so we finished up the show today with this footage here of this reckless driver pursuit in Los Angeles. Apparently it started about a half hour ago, and they'll be reporting this on their noon show. Look, they got the guy there in cuffs. Really great clear shot, close-up here of all the officers involved in chasing this guy. And we heard he rammed into a few of them. Is that what it was, Cam?
Yeah, he said multiple other cars that this guy hit and damaged in some way. He did say that they're still awaiting reports on any potential injuries or anything like that from anybody else. And obviously just from looking at this guy, doesn't seem like he was hurt in any way.
And they said that there was another person involved, another guy that came out of the car. Is that right? And his hands were down?
No.
It was a different
this
guy.
This guy was the guy that came out, and obviously he didn't come out hands up like you're supposed to.
And that was it.
Yeah, although, I mean, obviously the man made no type of, aggressive action once he was out of the car. I mean, obviously evading for evading the police for roughly 30 minutes. We got word that this started at
10:30 their time?
No, yeah, 10:30 California time. So obviously 1:30 here. And we didn't actually get the feed until the last 5 minutes or so, which is unfortunate, but still a really cool kind of event going out there in California. Hopefully nobody who was hit is in any kind of serious situation.
We get these from time to time. We've seen them on our show before as well, car chases and of the like. And the reporter out there does a good job describing.
Yeah, from our vantage point, at first I thought it was the second story. Okay, so wait, they hopped up by the front door? Yeah, but you need a little bit of a lift there. Yeah, there had to have been. All right. Best view in town at the Full Moon Inn, everybody. I'm surprised how casual they are about. I mean, those could be live wires. Yeah, those are power lines. Hey, Des, do you guys have locations on where those TCs were? Manchester and Flower, right? Look at all these guys like recording down below. Push, pan to the right, and tilt down. These guys right here.
All right, guys, so we watched the end of this police pursuit here as the driver surrenders in the Los Angeles area. You can see the palm trees there. Looks like this is under control at this point, I think.
Yeah, I mean, definitely seems under control. You've got all the police officers. You've got the whole situation, blocked off. You got plenty of people taking cameras. Earlier, if you're just tuning in, there was two looked like, young adults on top of that building in the bottom left corner. That was it's out of your screen now, but the building right there on the corner that we're taking video from the roof, so that was kind of cool to see.
Cell phone video, a little footage in the moment. But the guy did surrender to the officers that were chasing him, and this seems to be under control now. But you can see a big squad of cars there, lots of police presence. The car rammed into that gate right there that you can see. That's pretty violent. Usually we see these, we see them swerving around people and getting involved, but this was a sort of a crash ending, you could say.
Yeah, which is obviously one of the. I mean, I wonder if he just lost control or what exactly happened there. But that is, that's why you don't run.
Yeah. Gosh, I know. So there we go, guys. The end of this driver's pursuit in Los Angeles, and I just wanted to say thank you to our viewers. Thanks so much for joining us today. Molly and Nevola here in studio with intern Cam. We're doing a digital show every day, starting at 11 a.m. So check back in with us if you like it. And feel free to comment along with us and ask us any questions that you have. We're here on YouTube. So if you like the show, if you want to see when we pop up every day, click subscribe on your screen and you'll get a little pop-up in your email and on your smartphone as well for when we're on. You can also watch us on the website, fox5dc.com, because we are Fox 5 Local News in Washington, bringing you live news and events from everywhere, but we're based here in the DC studios. So that's where we are today. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We are going to leave you back with a shot of the Capitol Dome, back where we are in Washington, because this looks like it is finishing up. So
yeah, finishing up, under control, just people hanging out, taking videos.
Oh yeah, always compelling, always interesting. Those guys on the rooftop were funny.
Yep,
that was cool. Yeah, that excitement will end our show today, guys. So join us again tomorrow. We're here on the weekdays in the middle of the day on your lunch break, and you can come join us anytime here on YouTube. All right, guys, we'll see you soon, and have a great one.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.